First up is our Pledge of Allegiance. Stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You have an invocation of the person at home? We do not have any remote electronic attendance, so we'll start with our roll call, please. Alderperson Murphy.
Present.
Macias.
Present.
Razak.
Present.
Simeon.
Present.
Finch. Present. McNeil.
Present.
Castro. Present. Schmidt. Questions on the agenda? I believe, Clerk, we were going to just alert them to the fact that last week we had something on second reading that we all voted on. We had a group of them that should have been on first reading, so that will come back next week in the proper place. So I know that's not this agenda, but it's coming up around agenda, so don't be surprised when you see those. Is there public comment this evening? Mr. Rod? Okay. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Okay, hearing none, we move to the consent agenda, second reading ordinances. 8.1. An ordinance amending chapter 34, water and sewers of the Moline Code of Ordinances, section 34-2102, service connections. Oh, that's you.
That's okay. I'm gonna let you do it.
All right. Section 34-2114, maintenance of service pipes to address service line replacement responsibility pursuant to compliance with the Illinois Lead Service Line Replacement and Notification Act. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Simeon, seconded by Razak. Discussion. Any final words from you, Mr. Lodi? Okay, hearing none. Roll call, please.
Alderperson McNeil.
Aye.
Castro.
Aye.
Murphy.
Aye.
Macias.
Aye.
Razak.
Aye.
Simeon.
Aye.
Finch. 7 ayes, no nays. That motion carries, and that is all I have this evening, Your Honor.
We move to our roundtable discussion. 9.1 MKSK plan update. Right. Should I take it away or any
Absolutely,
intro?
Brett. Well, they're doing a great job, so let's just applaud them for the work they've done up until now. Long road, and looking forward to the end of the road shortly. So.
Yes, thank you everyone for having me this evening. My name is Brett Weidel. I'm a landscape architect and principal with MKSK. We're a landscape architecture planning and design firm. I'm in the Chicago studio, and I'm so excited to be here with you all tonight to talk about the Riverfront Master Plan, which we've been hard at work at over the last 12 months. Together with the community and valued stakeholders, we've had many conversations over the past many months. We've met with the community at least 3 times through public engagement sessions and also pop-up events and various other meetings along the way. We're here tonight to share with you where we're at in the process. So we are kind of rounding the corner at the end of our master planning process. We're in sort of the refinement and documentation phase. And so we're taking all that feedback that we've heard from the community and stakeholders, and we're synthesizing it into the final plans. There's still a lot of refinement to take place here, and it's based on a lot of technical and logistical and cost-related considerations. So that's what we're going to talk about this evening. Everything that you'll see up on the screen and around the room, we're excited to hear from you all more distinctly about your thoughts and opinions on the plan and how we can make the subtle tweaks that are going to be necessary to really take this thing over the top and become an implementable plan for Moline. So I'm going to talk through a couple topics. We'll pause at the end of every topic and have a group discussion, and then towards the end, Chris and the team here and Bob have put together a very engaging sort of interactive activity for us as well. So we'll just talk through, these are the categories. Sorry, I'm going to back up here. Land use, utilities, the Riverfront Park, the Bridgepoint Building, and the Kone Tower, as well as sequencing of the master plan. And maybe I'll stand up so you guys can, so I'm not blocking anything.
There you go.
Yeah. So first we want to talk about land use, and this is with respect to the entire master planning study area that we're looking at. We wanted to throw up a couple stats from our engagement process, and also we had a development strategies market analysis scan that was done at the beginning of the project to tell us what the market is going to warrant in terms of land use in the study area. So we did see that multifamily housing. Oops, not sure what.
Touch that. You touch that.
Oh, if I touch
Don't
it,
touch the screen.
I won't. Okay, it's back. I won't get too close. But the multifamily housing market is very strong and steady in the region. And so there is increased demand for this high quality rental housing and a diversity of housing typologies downtown. And so that is something that we focused in on right away. We knew that going into the study. We're building upon a lot of other plans that have already been done before we even came into the fold. And so all that hard work that the city has been doing over the years was also work that we were building upon as we came in. We also asked the residents and community members about, if they were to incorporate the top 5 experiences within this new riverfront district, what would that be? So we kind of quantified that, places to eat and drink, places to shop, be active, experience nature, rest and relax, and then places to live. So those were some of the top elements that we wanted to incorporate into this plan. And then we've sprinkled some quotes throughout. We've gotten some great input from folks through our conversations, through the surveys that we've done. People want to have businesses downtown, more local businesses. They want to have affordable housing. They want a dense area where they can walk and get to places easily and commute easily. They want retail and restaurant focused downtown where economic development opportunities are present. So that's kind of the frame of mind and the context. We have a lot more stats, a lot more feedback that we've received, and we're happy to share that as it would be helpful. But all this information is also on the website for the master plan, which we can share with you as well. So from a high level, we looked at the study area from a couple districts. So from 18th down to 7th, over to 25th, we started to, and I don't know if this will be able to see, you can't really see the laser, so I'll just point and hope this doesn't switch on me. But we've looked at a series of districts. So the Riverfront District is basically River Drive, north to the river, where the city has acquired a number of parcels. So that's a very exciting opportunity that we looked at. We looked at the space between River Drive and 4th Avenue. We're calling that our Moline Center Gateway. That's a very opportunistic piece of parcels that are right front and center when you get off I-74. So that is sort of your gateway into Moline, into Illinois from Iowa, that we see a tremendous opportunity. And then as we go further south, we're calling this area on the southwest the 5th Avenue hub, because it's sort of the eastern terminus of 5th Avenue, which already has such an amazing presence of commercial, local businesses. And we wanted to think about that area as something we could spur additional economic growth. And then on the further east side, we're calling this area River East. This is sort of the north part of the Park Hill neighborhood, a little bit further down the slope, where there's a lot of single family existing residential and industrial uses. So we're looking at that area. And then sort of this area in between everything, the I-74 corridor, that is a huge space under the bridge. So we didn't want to forget that there's a huge swath of open space that could be utilized for something and serve more as a connector than a divider to our community. So this slide just talks about some of the land uses. I realize it might be kind of small and difficult to see. So some of these things are a little bit bigger around the room, but from a very high level, we started to explore what uses could go in every area. From the 5th Avenue commercial hub, we're looking at, let's infill commercial. If there's an empty parking lot, that wants to be something that we want to fill and activate. There's vacancies in some of the storefronts. We want those to be filled with vibrant local businesses. And so that's an area that we want to put more emphasis in this plan about activating. What you'll see also in this plan, you're seeing these blue lines. That's primarily vehicular circulation, but where you're seeing the light blue lines, that's really important connectivity that's going to occur. And what we've sort of conceptualize through this plan is that we see downtown Moline as this circuitous sort of movement down Fifth Avenue, up 19th Street, where, you know, there's going to be a future greenway, across River Drive, and then back around Mercado. And so it's kind of this circuitous loop that you can go on if you're visiting Moline or you're downtown in Moline. We want people to keep going through downtown, patronizing the businesses, going to the restaurants. We don't want people to leave. We want them to come and we want them to stay. And so we're trying to emphasize ways that we can continue that loop. So you'll see that kind of emphasized in a couple ways this evening. On the east side, where we talked about that residential community, which we're calling River East now, you know, it's already a thriving, well, somewhat thriving residential neighborhood. There's residents that have lived there for many, many years, but then there's also a lot of empty lots. And so we're thinking about how can we infill that residential with additional diverse housing that the community may need. And then also there's a little bit of a commercial node there at 23rd and 5th. How can we support that? How can we strengthen that node? That can be a nice little community corner, you know, where there's a coffee shop or a place where people can just walk to on a Saturday morning or throughout the week. You'll see, so Fifth Avenue, actually, it used to run straight through. We realized that circulation has been cut off by I-74. So we can't do anything about that. We can't change the fact that we have a highway running through downtown now, but we can use what's there to our benefit. And so what we're starting to call the I-74 corridor through the center is that could be a greenway element. We heard a lot through the engagement process that the community is interested in additional recreational amenities. So tennis, pickleball, basketball, all sorts of sports, and then of course active recreation for young adults, teenagers, things like that. So we're talking about a skate park in that area. We're talking about other recreational elements, pathways, trails, pedestrian connectivity that will unify these two sides of the highway where the highway has kind of divided us up until now. So let's bring that connectivity back and really create a foundation for that to continue into the future. This area here that we talked about, the Moline Center Gateway, we're focused on sort of mixed use residential. So this could be something that fits into the downtown feel. It's a little bit more urban in nature, might have commercial or retail on the bottom and housing up above. And then some civic uses within the middle there along I-74. When you first come off the highway, that's an opportunity to be a gateway into the community. So how can we showcase what kind of community this is? You know, whether it's through a community center or a public plaza or art or some form of welcome. So that's a great opportunity in this zone that we're really excited about. And then as we get to the riverfront, that is what we're calling sort of our catalytic site. The city has positioned well with procuring a lot of those sites to date. So a lot of those sites are within city ownership. So we're really starting to talk about how can we utilize those to really launch this plan, get a couple projects that we feel are tangible, and get off the ground and get this thing moving as a holistic master plan. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. What you're seeing too is we have a little bit more of a detailed plan for this riverfront site. So this is the riverfront vision plan as it stands today, and as we presented to the community about a month ago. We received some great input on this plan that we still want to put into works, but we want to have conversations with you all tonight about refining with those comments as well. As of this plan, it incorporated 303 residential units. So that might be condos, it might be apartments, it might be townhomes, it might be smaller sort of apartments, a range of sizes, but those are all taking place in these mixed use residential buildings. We also have parking. So parking is really important. We know that, you know, not everyone's going to hop on a bike tomorrow and that's going to become their form of transportation. So we really need to make sure that we're including parking within this plan. We have a couple surface areas for parking, including one here. And then along the streets, we have on-street parking, but then we also have structured parking. It's going to be important to accommodate the large amount of people that might want to visit this future park at some point. On a day-to-day basis. So we have one when you enter on 19th Street, right here when you first get in. Sorry, got too close. And then also when you go into the district, there's another one back here, which is actually closer to the park. So for families and for the elderly, for people that need to just be closer to the amenities, there's that opportunity as well. We're also looking at a very wonderful opportunity with the existing building called the Spiegel Building, which is down here at the corner at I-74 and River Drive. So it's that existing brick building that's there today. We're currently exploring the reuse of that building, which we'll talk about a little bit later in more detail. But we're looking at lots of different options for what that building can be used for. I think what we wanted to talk about tonight with respect to land use in this zone is specifically, in my notes, we're talking about, are the uses that we're showing here appropriate for this riverfront district? And specifically, are there other things that should be added to the plan? One idea was, do we need a boutique hotel? So that's something that's on the table. That might be something, and we captured a couple images here. What is a boutique hotel? First of all, it's different than your Red Roof Inn. It's different than your Hilton Garden Inn. A boutique hotel is a little bit more unique and special. We just put a couple defining characteristics here. They're usually smaller, usually less than 100 rooms. They're in a specific special location that makes them unique. They're a little bit more personalized and cozy. So we wanted to kind of put this up there just to give a frame of reference. The Access Hotel is a really good example locally. The Current over in Davenport is another example. So this was a topic that we wanted to, float around. We also wanted to talk a little bit more about the residential that we're showing both in the riverfront site, but also within the rest of the plan. So if you're looking at south of the riverfront site, you're seeing a little bit more detail on what we're showing for other areas of the plan. Fifth Avenue Hub, we could also have some more residential, a little bit more urban, maybe apartment style above residential or retail, excuse me. And then on the southeast corner, that might be more infill residential, whether it's townhomes, additional single family homes. Again, bringing that diversity of different typologies to the community. This is just another view, looking a different direction at these spaces. You can kind of get a perspective feel for size and scale of these things. And then some images. This just shows what that I-74 corridor is sort of conceptualized as, some of the recreational amenities that we hope could unify both sides of the highway. And then some of the development. So, whether it's a range and typology of different housing options, incorporating a lot of pedestrianized public amenities, public art, connectivity. We want it to feel walkable, bikeable, but also it's vehicular oriented too. Like, we need to recognize that cars are going to be there and we need to accommodate them as well. So I will pause there, and hoping that we can have a discussion about both the riverfront site with respect to land use as well as the rest of the site.
Council, your comments?
I personally am not a fan of a boutique hotel in the riverfront area itself. Maybe someplace else other than that area. I feel like that should be more for the residents. Not that it should be for the residents to use, but I'm just thinking more land space should be dedicated for things for people in the community to do, rather than take up space for a hotel. I mean, because we already have the access down there, we have the elements not too far over there, and I'm not saying it couldn't be incorporated somewhere else, but I think that riverfront area, so close to the river, should be more of a green space area and more for the residents. That's just my opinion.
I would counter that with the only way we're going to bring in new dollars is if we have things that people from outside the region want to engage with. And so there has to be a balance of the multi or mixed use residential that our folks can take advantage of, and then where we can bring in new people. I'm also fully aware through my work with Visit Quad Cities that we have enough hotels in the Quad Cities, right? We have enough hotels, but the unique opportunities that a boutique hotel would provide would blend very well with what is being proposed down here. So with the Visit Quad City hat on, I think I can understand that desire, and it just would need to be balanced.
Those are both really good points. I'll just add to that because you mentioned it. Our market analysis team did study whether it would be beneficial to bring in another hotel. Originally, we steered away from it a little bit just because the findings were that there is enough capacity from the existing hotels that are here today, and we wouldn't want to build another hotel and then take away business from the existing hotels. So with that in mind, we also see that it could be a really wonderful amenity to attract people from outside the city to this site and the river itself, and that, you know, that's why we went the boutique hotel route. It's smaller, it can be a little bit more special, unique, and catered to this district, especially.
I also wanted to follow up on, especially if you go to the other plan, the River East. What this reminds me of is that area in Nashville where the Parthenon replica is, a huge park. And then there's all this condo development, apartments, you know, varieties of styles, etc., surrounding that, and Vanderbilt University is nearby, and this reminds me of that, and I like that, and I like the examples that you shared of what is activated underneath that space, and it sort of I like the connectivity that it brings to the whole downtown to the river, which is very much in line with what ULI shared with us back when we started on this council, April 21. So I think that's good because it means more than MKSK is talking about, has talked about the connectivity of green space.
I'm glad we pulled this up, and I first want to call out, I like River East over Campus Town, so thank you.
That was a recent.
Much better.
I've been down here recently, on particularly in Fifth Avenue in this section. There is a lot of Salvation Army is there. There is the Sunbelt Rental. There is also a large privately owned auto garage that has been there forever. I know that these are just conceptual plans and they're, you know, pie in the sky. Here's what we want. What is the process in your experience? Like, how do we get this from what we have and very established, long existing community partners?
Yeah, we have had a conversation with that, especially with respect to several of the industrial uses that are currently along the riverfront, and you know, they've been there for ages, right? And they're not thinking about moving. So that's why we are framing this action plan as we will have short-term projects, we will have midterm projects, and we will have long-term projects. And we understand that not everything's going to happen overnight. It's going to be, some of these things are going to be slated long-term. We'll actually go through some of the sequencing later in the presentation to walk through that. But I think it's all frame of mind and preparing the city and these owners for the long term, right? And be thinking about it now, because you know, maybe 15 years down the road things change and they aren't there anymore. They want to sell, so then that's where the opportunity lies. Comments?
Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. Could we go back to I think the slide we were at before?
This one?
Yeah, oh, sure, yes, no. So next to the Spiegel building, we have the mixed-use residential, those buildings. And I don't know who originally made the comment that a lot of people say they go down River Drive, but they don't see the river. And right now with, you know, with everything just being there, you can actually see the other side. My only concern is with those buildings, you know, where the upper lawn starts, all the little ones, and then the mixed use, it blocks the river.
Yeah.
I guess as a priority, I think we could do the other stuff over here behind Spiegel, but then even across the street, that would be my recommendation. Try and keep that river view as long as possible. And if we get too many people wanting to develop, hey, well, that'll be a good problem to have.
Do we want people looking at the river while they're driving?
Well, they could be walking.
Oh, okay, that's fair. Okay, I'll give you that.
Yeah, I'm thinking more walking.
Okay,
I think that, sorry if I missed a hand, but I have heard in conversation with staff just that load of building, what is that called? Density. Okay. That density being really, really carefully thought out right there at that curve, like Mr. Sears was saying, in front of the upper lawn, right? Where can we loosen up some density so you, even if you can't actually see it, you can feel that there's nature and all of that drawing you in somehow. And, you know, we talked about a gateway at one point. Is that the corner of the Spiegel area? Where do people turn in to get back there? Like, to me, it looks kind of like small streets that you kind of have to finagle your way around. I don't know. What is the main drag, so to speak, to get back to Coney Court and back to structured parking?
Yeah.
That concerns me, because if you're building up a residential area, but you're gonna have all this traffic down there, it's gotta be really smartly planned off of that off-ramp.
If I can address a couple things, the main circulation point is coming off 19th. So,
Anyhow, you're back.
I'm back. Okay, sorry.
Playing with you.
So sensitive. So we did actually study this location here, which is currently, I think it's like Montgomery Drive or 20th.
It's
That's
20th.
there. Yeah, we've studied that quite a bit we have a traffic engineer on our team, and we are a bit limited with its use just because of its proximity to the off-ramp. So what we're trying to play with right now is maybe like a right in, right out concept, or maybe just a right out concept, so we don't stack up cars coming off of the off-ramp. So that's something we need to just be recognize and be careful about, that location. And conversations are continuing to be had about it. But 19th Street we see as like sort of that main conduit into the district. Once you get to Second, you have the option to keep going straight, and then there would be a drop-off court here at something we're looking at as maybe an ecology or community center, and then turn the corner and enter a large structured parking. There would be
that one on the left.
Yeah,
It's
so
not necessarily for the residential only that you have.
not only, but
That
maybe
makes sense to me now, that that's
Yeah.
much closer and easier to get to than the one on the right.
Yeah, there would be two options. And of course, a lot of wayfinding would be very important in these scenarios to guide people to where they want to go based on what they want to do. But this would be your first stopping point for like, I just want to get out of the car and walk. So you could come here and park. If you want to get into the district, get closer to some of the amenities, you could turn right. You can drive along these drives, park on the street, or this actually turns the corner and becomes kind of a shared street plaza. Kind of becomes less vehicular oriented as you get into the development. So it becomes more pedestrian oriented, but there would be another structured parking garage. I think some of the challenges we're faced with this site in particular is just that it is kind of nestled up against the highway. And so we really are limited with where we can bring cars in and out. And that's something we continue to study with our traffic engineers. They just sent us an email yesterday with a ton of great additional feedback. So we're going to continue to work through that. We also need to work through access to some of these buildings with respect to service. We know if we have a food and beverage, B stands for food and beverage. So if we have a restaurant or a cafe, we're going to have service, back of house, things like that. So those are also things we're talking about. To the point, did I not answer your other question? You had another one. Oh, well, visibility.
Yeah.
Because I know you brought that up too at the engagement session, and to the point about just seeing the river. We'll talk about that a little bit more with respect to some utility conflicts that we've encountered on the site. And I think where the discussion can go, we can start to see, how do some of these buildings maybe push and pull to allow for more views to the river, less conflicts with underground elements that we're seeing as well. So we'll look at some diagrams for that too.
So I like the nature bluffs and the wetlands and the boardwalks. And just, I guess I'm asking for confirmation here. So when I see wetlands created, they're usually in backwaters. I know we're heading toward the slough here, but still on the channel. And that works because we're kind of reshaping the riverfront there. Is that?
Yeah. So we actually have a whole series of slides. We'll talk a little bit more about the riverfront part, but yes, absolutely. We're trying to harness the fact that we have this open space here as both a resiliency asset, that we can take charge of how that land is shaped and move the water in the way we want to move it, clean it before it enters the river, and then use that as an opportunity to educate the community about the process along the way. So there's some great opportunities here with that we can talk more about, but definitely from the engagement, what we heard is the number one thing people wanted to do, and the number one interests that people had with the river was getting closer to it, having more of a connection to nature. And so we really saw that and wanted to incorporate that into the plans for the park.
All right, you want to continue?
Sure. Okay. So we're going to talk about utilities. So there's no engagement on this slide because this is a very technical exercise that we've been doing with our design team. We have a great civil engineer on the project, EMH&T, and Sam Schwartz, who is our traffic engineer as well. But they have highlighted some of the existing utilities that are on the site today. They're not small. There's a lot of large utilities running through this site. And what we needed to determine is what utilities are easy to move and may want to be moved because we are reshaping this district from what it is today. And what are some of the more problematic utilities that are so large that they're going to be cost prohibitive, or maybe there's just no desire to change them. Why are we even talking about relocating utilities? Because when the old bridge used to run through this site right here, and it used to turn. And so what you're seeing here is some of these lines actually were built around the old bridge and the old off ramps. And so now we're trying to put buildings there, and there's a conflict. So we need to understand, what our appetite is for, keeping utilities in place and potentially changing our building outlines, or modifying some utilities so that we have more opportunity on this site. So this just gives a high-level summary at some of the larger utilities that we're really looking at. Some of the smaller ones that you're seeing outlined in that very light, faint line, those are smaller. I mean, they're closer to grade. They're going to be easier to move in a road renovation project than some of these larger ones. So we're talking like an 84-inch storm sewer that's running through, collecting a ton of water and bringing it out to the Mississippi. We also have a 60-inch storm trunk sewer that's running north as well, almost in parallel, and they're exiting out very close together at that location. There's also a 36-inch sanitary sewer that you're seeing in brown that's running through the district site, as well as some existing transmission lines. They're overhead transmission lines that are running along River Drive. They actually go over the I-74 bridge today and then turn along 19th. And then I believe at that location, that's where they're buried and go underground. So these are the ones we're going to talk about today. We came up with several scenarios to explore the utilities and what we could do here. The first scenario is we maintain them all exactly where they are today. We don't touch any of them. We only touch the ones, that are closer to grade and easier to work with. We're not going to touch any of these large ones. So this is scenario A. We don't modify them. What would this do? This would minimize that impact on utilities. It would reduce cost for these projects, so we wouldn't have to worry about relocating them. And then we also wouldn't have any uncertainty about what's below grade. So through our study, we've come to realize that there's bedrock below grade anywhere from about 7 to 20 feet. And that ranges across the site. We don't have the exact information about it. We would have to do more geotechnical borings to really get more info about like where those levels are. But we have an idea that there could be an issue with bedrock. And so once you start to think about, do we want to relocate a utility that's, potentially 15 feet under grade and cored out within the rock to another location where we have to re-core out through the rock, the costs just start to skyrocket. So that is an unknown in our study right now that we just don't have all of the information to make an informed decision about. So we thought that we wanted to start to just talk about this from a higher level with that understanding, acknowledging that that could be a reality. So this is what happens if we don't move any of the utilities and we start to modify our plan around the utilities. What would happen is this ecology center community space that we talked about, we can reduce that. So instead of removing that amenity altogether, we could just reshape it. We liked that it was at the end of 19th because 19th is going to be a future greenway. We're building a trail there. It's going to connect people to this river from the Rock River, which is really exciting. And so it's really a terminus point. And it's also a welcoming gateway into the Riverfront Park. So having that there, having that drop off point there where school buses and people can drop off going into the park is really beneficial, but we can shape that. So that's not something that's, out of our hands. With respect to some of the other sites, we had a food and beverage site here as you came into the park. Maybe it's a little coffee shop or something to really invite people in. That can be removed. That can become open space. That can provide more views into the park. So that's not really an issue necessarily. And then this site along River Drive in 19th, that originally we had shown a lot of development. We had talked about having sort of this dense edge and this very bustling sort of district feel. But what we're seeing is the utility conflicts there are very prohibitive. So what we could do is we could shift the building footprint north and east. And this white mass here would actually become more open space. So again, it's kind of bringing that park out to River Drive, providing a more generous setback. It would have a very different feel. It wouldn't feel as urban, so we need to be aware of that. But it could provide another opportunity to really bring that park out to River Drive. And then same thing in this gateway area, we could just reshape some of our building footprints around the utilities. Again, like there's benefits to doing that. We don't have to reshape our utilities there, but we do sacrifice on the amount of development that we can have. So when it comes to a developer being enticed to build here, that's something that we want to keep continuing to talk about with our development team. We also had shown a structured parking garage in this location as well. We can change that to a surface parking lot. Again, it just goes back to capacity and, we'll be able to do less, but then there's less expense to relocate utilities. So we did explore some other options here. What if we did relocate some of these elements? So this is what we would like feedback on today. Do we want to relocate or bury any of these items, or do we just want to leave them in place? This is the transmission line that's running along River Drive. We're studying and currently putting cost numbers together to understand what that cost benefit analysis is if we were to bury this stretch of transmission line. It's an overhead line, so from why would we do this? This would improve your views and your first impressions of the Riverfront District. You wouldn't have that sort of vertical obstruction running through River Drive there. And then it would also maximize development potential on these lots. So this is something we'd like to consider with you all this evening. This is the plan that's showing if we were to relocate some of these trunk lines. These are the ones that we're worried may have significant costs associated with them, depending on where that bedrock lies with respect to the level of the utility themselves. What we're showing up in the upper corner, it's kind of hard to see because it's so tiny, I apologize, but we did cut a cross section through this area right here. Because in that zone, that's where we were talking about where the nature bluffs and wetlands might be. That's an opportunity for us to collect stormwater from the site and usher it out into the river, clean it along the way. So in this scenario, we can still do that at grade. And those lines, you can kind of see they're running way down below grade and then they're emptying out. So those are almost like two systems of stormwater management. You got your below grade stormwater management, and you got your above grade surface level stormwater management. The only change we would be making would be to shift these lines further east so that we could avoid everything going on at the Ecology and Community Center. The other change we're exploring is if we would want to relocate the 84-inch from going through this gateway site over to 19th, just so we can dodge that whole development site and create a more developer enticing development site there as well. What we also explored with respect to these that's a little bit different than the last scheme was the potential to empty these lines into the site versus into the river. So this was an idea that our civil engineer had that, maybe there's benefit, I don't know, from a maintenance perspective, from a water cleansing perspective, that we could just empty the lines right here. And that would become sort of a drainage canal into the river. So that water would actually come out. There would be live water all the time versus a rain garden. might be more dry at certain times of year and then wet when you get a high rain event. So it's sort of two different scenarios. And that could help, it could facilitate future inspection or maintenance of those systems. Again, it could provide a really cool visual as a part of an educational opportunity as well. And then we're also exploring this 36-inch sanitary line. The small dotted line is the current configuration. We're exploring what if we were to realign that along the future 2nd Avenue roadway just to provide a larger development footprint again. So I will pause there. I know that's a lot of information. Thank you.
And maybe Tony, you can help with this. If these storm lines are possibly embedded in bedrock, that's just how deep they are. Why can't we build on top of it? Is there a law prohibiting, or is it just a maintenance thing? It feels like there's got to be a couple 6-10 feet of clay and soil on top of that should mitigate any kind of load issue.
Yeah, it's definitely not best engineering practice to even still build on top of it. So especially with an 84-inch storm sewer, that's a lot of volume inside that. If the top of that pipe were to collapse, it's slowly over time going to absorb all of that soil that's on top of it, create a sinkhole. That's how sinkholes are formed. And then the next thing, you've got a giant sinkhole under your building.
Well, with the other one, and I'll just quit talking. I think the underground electrical relocation, great idea. When we redo River Drive, I'm not, in my opinion, being too proactive about that is not necessary. I wish we had thought about 19th Street as we're resurfacing it now. That could be a very large cost. But anything underground with electrical, I think we talk about this with engineering. When the opportunity arises during reconstruction, that's usually when we approach that.
Yes, so when they were building the new I-74 bridge, and I don't know, maybe was here during that time, when they were digging, like, did they hit some of that bedrock?
Yes.
Yes, so I'm just gonna assume it's probably gonna be, if there's a chance and they were hitting it, it's probably gonna be on the high end. I don't know, what would be your guess, I guess, Tony?
Well, Brett's right. The sewer that was installed and were relocated in parts of that, there was a varying depths of bedrock, and what the contractor noted was that it was particularly, what's the word he used? Yeah.
That's a real
Hard.
Very hard.
I was gonna say, I very much appreciate you mentioning the attractiveness to developers with whichever plans or scenarios you go with. I will say, the difficulty Midwestern cities are having in attracting residential development would seem to impact us no matter what the plan was. And so when I see an increased green space that connects us and gets us that view to the river, if you will, with a smaller multi-use residential thing there on that corner of 19th and River Drive, to me it makes sense because we've already lived through having to scale back a project, in downtown because of this situation. So I wouldn't want to go too small, as you were saying, like you lose the super urban feel. But I think we can find a balance because of that reality. I'd rather the city go into it knowing that it's difficult to attract, but making it absolutely as attractive as we can within the bounds of what we're looking for. Others?
We're looking for those unique features. I think the urban ecology center is a unique feature. I also understand if there's a conflict and we need to reduce it in size, but it could be less of a unique feature if it's reduced in size. So I currently plan field trips. We look at, is there enough to do? Is this significant, right? And so that's just something that was like 14,000 square feet to 8,000 square feet. I can't, but it wasn't in half, but it was.
Yeah, 14,000 to 8,000. Yeah, and that ecology center we see as coupled both with indoor destinations, but also exterior. So those nature bluffs, walks, and the wetlands that are along this side. And actually, we have a little cultural plaza. Sorry, up at the riverside there, where we wanted to express some of the more historical stories that we've heard a lot about within the community. So like this whole side, this whole edge along the water department, we look at as an ecological opportunity for education in a number of different aspects. So we could right size that, you know, based on like what are the outdoor opportunities, what are the indoor opportunities, based on the plan.
When I see that kind of curve there around to 19th Street and opening things up, but also retaining buildings and density, right? It makes me think I don't want to forget the rooftop appeal, because as you come on that bridge, right, you really don't want to just see ugly rooftops. I think maybe we haven't talked about that yet or what have you, but I think that's very important, is that there are unique aspects. I know you've talked about public art on top of roofs before in other contexts.
Rooftop gardens.
Yeah, all
Rooftop
kinds of things that we can have, I think is very important. And then that also helps us retain, as you were talking about, that kind of urban style, even if they're shrinking the footprint just. Yeah.
Anything further from the council?
Okay, please continue.
All right, we are gonna focus a little bit more on the park spaces. So we asked the community what the top 3 elements of the riverfront park were for them. You know, what were they most attracted to in the concepts that we put together? And boardwalks along the river was the #1 vote. So everyone loved that idea. And in our conversations, people just really want to get closer to the water. So that was really exciting to see. River's Edge Dining, we showed a little cafe building within the park with terrace seating where you can have movable tables and chairs, have a glass of wine or a coffee with your family or friends. That was another very high vote, and talked to a lot of people just about the need for more dining to occur along the river's edge. Adventure inspired play. So this was exciting to hear. People were really excited about the diversity and range of play experiences that we were showing. We wanted this to be an accessible plan, so anyone from any age or ability, whether you're 2 years old, whether you're 18, whether you're 64, you can come out and find something to engage with. And also there could be that extra level of adventure within the play. We've talked about climbing walls. We've talked about, you know, fun experiences like that can make this a really unique destination. Naturalized landscapes, that kind of goes along with the first one. People, again, they want to get in touch with the nature of the river, the ecology, the animal habitats that are there today. And so really bringing that connection to light. And then nature inspired play, that definitely syncs up with the other play element, but people were excited about having play experiences that brought them closer to nature, whether that's through the materiality of the play structures. It could be woods, native materials, rocks, things like that. Or it could also have a sculptural public art component to it, something that can tell the story of ecology within Moline. So I won't go through all the quotes here, but there's some fun things that we had great conversations with the community about for the park itself. When we presented this to the community, we presented it in these sort of 5 zones. We had that lawn space sort of centralized that we call the relax and gather zone. That's where people can come together for community-oriented events. This zone we wanted to be distinctive from anything else within the community. So we understand that, sorry, I'm blanking on the stadium's name right now. Help me out. The Vibrant Arena. Vibrant Arena. They're putting in an outdoor venue, we realize. And that's going to be a little bit more like you pay for a ticket, you go see a show, that kind of thing, which is super exciting. And we don't want to compete with that necessarily. This is intended to be an equitable public space for the community. Anyone is welcome. You never have to pay money to go to this lawn space. You can go out, you can relax. You could also have a movie in the park or yoga or something like that. So just a very flexible space that we've talked about right sizing, also for how the Parks and Rec department would use that space. We've talked about the soften and naturalize zone over by the water department of that. It's a very naturalized part of this plan. It's utilizing, actually there's a slope and a berm there today of where an underground water treatment facility is below grade. So we need to protect that and make sure that, we're not letting people like onto that area. So it's going to be something we want to be defensible. And so we thought by building onto that, we could create a series of additional hills and topography that could become sort of a destination that people can interact with. Nature walks, a picnic grove, a demonstration garden where people can learn about ecology and wetlands and how the water circulates and cleans itself through the site. This connect and extend zone in the middle there, that's really where we're connecting people from the district to the river through a series of pathways to the Great River Trail, and then also connecting people from that trail to the district. So that relationship of people coming to and going to is very important. And that's why it's so prominent in the plan, because we're really pulling people out and pulling people in. So it's kind of this gathering point. And in that zone, we're showing an interactive water feature that can be a really iconic destination, very artistic. People can play with it, people of all abilities. That Riverside Cafe is front and center, so people can come and dine. They can walk along that promenade. And then a really key overlook right in the middle here, we're calling Montgomery Point, where that kind of juts out a little bit more into the river. That's where you go. That's where you get your photo taken. It's kind of like the prime opportunity with the district in the background, the tower in the background, and then the river on the other side. From there, we have this whole series of wetlands and river's edge. That's a part of that soften and naturalize zone. It's a series of pathways that extend off of the main bike trail. So the bike trail, actually, you can see with the dotted green line, actually goes into the site a little bit because we want to pull people in. But if you're on that bike trail and you want to veer off and have a little bit more of a meandering, naturalized experience, you can go on these boardwalks. There might be a canoe launch or a kayak launch. There would be other wetland gardens. It would really be that full connection to nature. This play and explore zone, that's where that active adventure play and nature play is happening. So it's a series of outdoor rooms that have locations for people to play of all different ages and abilities. You might have a 2 to 5 year old zone. You might have a 5 to 12 year old zone, different sort of rooms, places to explore within there with a lot of fun play equipment. And then off of that, we have our preserve and enhance zone. Haven't talked too much about this yet, but this is a very important topic, the Bridgepoint building and the Kone Tower. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail, but we're showing that we can start to demolish part of this building and preserve other parts of the building. And so there might be a plaza there that tells the history of industry in Moline, the railroad, sort of the logging industry. We want to be able to communicate the stories of how industry has impacted the community over time. We also want to be able to leverage the tower potentially for a second life. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. And then a couple of the spaces for the building we're showing could be reused for an event space or a climbing hub, and really just reutilizing those buildings again for a new purpose. We wanted to include this slide as well with respect to flooding. This is something we studied extensively with our civil team. We realize that this is not going to be a dry site all year round. And the point of the exercise is that we design a site that can be resilient and bounce back from flooding events. We're not going to prevent flooding from happening. We know it's going to occur, and we want to know where it's going to occur, and we want to design for it. So what you're seeing here is the different flood year events. So 25-year is the dark blue, sort of the middle color is the 50-year flood line, and then the one up here is where the water would get to in a 100-year flood event. And so what we would do is design these spaces to be resilient for flooding. It's kind of like, I'm from Chicago, so we have the river walk right there. It floods multiple times every year, and they come up and they clean it off, and then people are out there again the next day. So we want to be able to plan for those things from a maintenance perspective, but also when we pick our materials, let's not pick materials that are going to get washed away when the floodwaters come. Let's be smart about how we're designing the space. this is a lot of imagery, but it does kind of start to showcase the look and the feel of the play and explore zone, the preserve and enhance zone, connect, extend, relax and gather, and soften and naturalize. So a lot of pretty pictures, which we're happy to share with you all. And then we have cut some cross sections through the site to start to articulate the size and the scale of some of these elements and how they feel in relationship to one another. This is a section through the play garden, the Great River Trail, and those boardwalks along the river. This is looking at sort of that central promenade, that connect and extend, where you see the Riverfront Cafe, some of the dining that would occur there, the wetlands, and then that overlook. And then at the bottom here, you're seeing a section cut again through, this is sort of that dining space where you're actually seeing that terrace of movable tables and chairs, and that overlook on that section. We have put together a couple preliminary views of what these spaces could look like. This is a view taken from that upper lawn. So you're seeing how the space really pulls you in towards the river. You have open views of that bridge. We want that to be a focal point. That's something that draws you in. Views of the Kone Tower. And then just this really welcoming diversity of spaces from very naturalistic to more open. And this is just a view of the district looking at those spaces. I think we already looked at this. So yeah, this is sort of the look and feel of that district space. Wanted to put up a couple images here. Again, we're really trying to interweave a lot of diversity into the district itself, making sure we have open spaces that are intertwined within that commercial activity. And then this is just a visualization of what that might look like if you're looking along, I guess that would be Montgomery Avenue towards the Kone Tower. All right, so I will pause there. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
You mentioned flooding. I'm interested primarily in our uncertified levee that we have currently north of the tower. Is your plan to leave that, to level it, to allow for flooding to come in, or actually get a proper levee?
Yeah, so what we've discovered through our analysis is that levee is not really serving any purpose for flood protection. It's mostly serving for like erosion control for the Bridge Point building. It's keeping Mississippi water out of that site, right? But when there is an extreme flood event, water is actually coming up through the utilities. Yep. And so that site gets wet, that parking lot fills with water. We see, water shooting out of the utilities. So what we decided when we started designing this is that we didn't want that sort of levee to be a visual barrier to the water. And through the conversations, that visual to the water was really important. So we wanted to take that down. And so we actually have a series of a couple other diagrams that actually show we're still going to have a levee on the site, but you're not going to see it. It's going to be hidden. So we're actually moving some topography up towards that river district. Your riverfront district becomes the levee. Your buildings are elevated. So when you see on this view here, the development pads are actually serving that purpose to keep the water out. And then we recognize that the park would flood, and we're going to build towards that, design towards that.
When you mentioned that the utilities, there's a sub basement there that is filled with water almost all the time. Yeah. Would we just fill those basements?
Yeah, we have a series of slides. We'll talk about the Bridge Point building and what to do with it. We are talking about demolishing a large part of it, and that would probably be a part with those basements. So there would be a process of excavating and removing, hauling off old material, infilling with new. Yeah.
Great. Continues.
All right. So I want to talk about the Bridge Point building here. So we've asked the community about the Bridge Point building and the Kone Tower. We asked specifically how they felt about it. 46% said they don't have a strong opinion. 40% said it must be preserved, and 14% said it should be torn down. So that was helpful to understand where people felt about it. And then we also asked if it's feasible for the tower to remain, what opportunity gets people the most excited. So we looked at a couple scenarios. One was getting people to the top of the tower and experience that tower as an experiential platform where you could view. That got the highest votes. 303 people wanted to go to the top of the tower. We also asked, what if the tower is just a beacon? It becomes a visual element. About half the people, 116 people, said that was intriguing to them. And then we also asked, what if it's just an interactive element? You could look at it. You could maybe, what if you put something on the outside of it? It becomes a climbing wall or something like that. That got the lesser votes. So what we did for this conversation today, we want to talk about 4 options for the tower. And I'll preface this with the fact that the tower needs to have further site investigative work and analysis, an evaluation conducted by a certified structural engineer, an MEP engineer, and an environmental engineer to really understand what is there today. We do not have that information today, yet we have talked about going to retrieve information like that to give a background. So what we're looking at is we could remove the tower completely. It just gets demolished and we don't replace it. We could look at preserving the tower, and we've looked at an option where we preserve the tower itself, but we don't go up to the top of it. We maybe provide some sort of ramp experience that would ramp around the bottom of it, but it would continue to stay in place as a visual icon. The third option we've explored is making the tower accessible to the community so they can go up to the top and have that lookout. And the fourth option would be to remove the tower completely and replace it with something brand new, a completely new icon. So we've looked at the Bridgepoint building to the earlier comments. We've looked at potentially demolishing a large majority of the building shown in white here. A lot of the building has been additive over the years and doesn't serve a lot of architectural, historical purpose, but there are some really cool elements to the building too. There are some older brick walls, some colonnades. This sort of loading dock on the southern side is really interesting. So those are some of the aspects of the building we're looking to preserve and enhance. So our architecture team has looked at these 2 scenarios in particular. The one on the left explores keeping the tower in place and not going to the top of it, but being able to weave around it on the bottom, providing maybe like a lower platform with additive sort of ramps that would still get you up high and get to experience the park at a different level. The concept on the right shows if we were to allow people to go to the top of the tower, we recognize that we would need to have an accessible way up and down that is not an elevator. So right now, the core of the tower is a series of elevators, and it does not afford a stairwell. So we've explored adding a stairwell to the tower to make it safe, make it compliant with current codes. So that is sort of this additive element that you're seeing off to the side. We didn't want to compromise the integrity of the current structure and the current design. A lot of what we talked about with the community is that it's a beloved icon. And so through this study, we did not mess with that too much. We just added, what would be necessary to make it compliant. And so you could experience this space through interweaving ramps leading up to a secondary platform. And then again, you could either take an elevator to the top, or you'd also have that stairway option up and down to the top of the tower. These were a couple of views just looking down Montgomery Avenue of the current tower as it is today. And then again, if we modified it with that additional stairwell. The alignment of this road was very thoughtful. We did kink the road so that we could have that tower on an axis. If we don't have the tower, it begs the question, do we even need to, align the road in that manner? So another thing to think about. So I'll just pause there and would love to hear thoughts on the tower.
I like option 3, the access to the top. I think there's potential there.
I'm probably in the minority here, but I don't have any really opinion on whether we should keep it or not. If we took it down, that would probably be completely fine with me. But if we did keep it, I think you have to go to the top. Otherwise, why have it?
Thank you, Mr. Kenny.
I am a strong proponent of option 2, primarily because it is a staple visually of the city. It welcomes you. It still has an education component as we walk around it, but we have the ability in the future to maybe explore option 3 as investors come in. So we could do a short-term option too, much cheaper. Long-term, there's a possibility.
Yes.
I'm in agreement with, Mrs. Finch over here because, I think it is visual. It reminds me kind of like the Arch in St. Louis. It, you know, it's kind of like a landmark. I really think we need to keep it and go to the top.
We can achieve landmark status for it and get historic tax
It
credits.
should have some symbol. So I consider it as a overcoming symbol, so.
I'm thinking about, former mayor of Pittsburgh, why did I like his name? You will.
Or-
Tom Murphy. No, yes, Tom Murphy,
Murphy.
who was quoted in our news after the ULI concept introduction as basically go big or go home. I mean, it was, it was about embracing these bigger challenges, and I think if we're going to do that any place in this spot, or in this development, it's gotta be the tower. Safety obviously is a big concern. I don't think this is something that, the city would run, unfortunately, like the Arch, we don't have a national park running the Arch, but, so I'm curious about the operational piece of that, right? Who's caring for this? Is there money charged to be a part of it, like there is in the Seattle Space Needle? But again, it is an iconic structure that draws people in. Like, we have to have something that people can't get other places. That I think is key for in terms of the tourism factor here. Others, yes.
Well, it seems like we're voting, so.
You'll get
So-
a chance.
So, I like the ramp approach, and when I look at the, option that adds the second tower, if the structure is iconic as the Coney Tower, to me, it's like, oh, well, now that option has the tower with the tower tacked on it, which I don't personally.
I've been in that tower before, and it's not that big in there. I would say make it even bigger. If we're gonna build access to it, make it even bigger, add on to it. Probably smaller. But it is unique, and it's part of our landscape or the silhouette of the city. It's, yeah, totally iconic.
Along those lines, miscellaneous, Keith Anderson, whose descriptions of his architectural drawings of what you could do artistically around the tower were shared at PMT a while ago. Mr. Anderson, I'm
Yeah.
assuming you've seen those. I really like those. I really like that the tower is there, but a new structure comes up alongside it and turns it into a piece of art. So I just want to. Okay, nothing further. We gotta keep moving. Yep.
All right, we wanted to touch on the Spiegel building in a little bit more detail here. So that is the existing brick building at the corner of the site. So just as background, we are exploring right now with Renew Moline, whether we can reutilize that building and what we can reutilize it for. We're particularly exploring some type of food hall or public market concept for that building. And the goal of that study, which is occurring in concert with this master plan study, it may actually go a little bit longer, is that we really want to understand first, can we use the Spiegel building for this use? And then second, if we can't use the Spiegel building for this use, is it viable to have the use of a food hall or public market somewhere else on the riverfront site or adjacent? So those are things that are currently being studied with a separate consultant. Their name is NVA New Venture Advisors. They've done some additional engagement with the community and specifically with sort of food service providers, farmers, retailers, all along that line. So we have asked the community, what types of vendors would you like to visit at a public food hall or a market along the riverfront? We're hearing, sit-down restaurants, number one. People want more dining. They want pop-up farmers markets, food trucks, deli sandwich shops, and bakeries. So all those fun things that we love to go visit. And they think that can enhance this part of the district as well as, if we were to repurpose a historic part of the site, such as the Spiegel building, that's something that we can tell the community story with, not tearing down something that has a history to it, because those things are so few and far between, but let's find a way to leverage those aspects, whether for a public market or for something else. And so as we talk about the Spiegel property, again, we want to think about the reuse of that building. What could we reutilize it for? We've heard from our team, our NBA team that's exploring this. They've looked at the structure. They've given it a visual inspection. The structure has integrity to it. So it's viable for future use. Definitely there's cosmetic upgrades that are needed, new windows, and depending on the type of use that the building were to take on, it might need other improvements to it. So those are things that we would need to consider. Different uses require different sort of spatial planning and requirements there. But through their study, they will be providing us options towards the end of July. They're going to be looking at spatial diagramming for this building, but they're also going to be looking at a possible construction of a new building. And so we're going to be able to look at comparison of, okay, what if we reuse the building for a public market, and what if we construct a new building for a public market? So some of the key takeaways, respondents to the surveys, they're most interested in this outdoor or in restaurants and dining, community spaces, retail and shopping. They want to be able to access fresh, local, nutritious, and affordable foods and have options for that indoor and outdoor seating. So these are just a couple of the key takeaways of their study as of today. I felt like in our conversations, a huge takeaway is the idea of this economic mobility for the community. Providing an asset that really provides a range and diversity of options for local businesses and entrepreneurs to come, sell their goods, engage with the community, have sit-down dining, maybe launch a business, have sort of an incubator space that they can start at. We've actually also talked about Mercado is a great asset in the community, but they are almost approaching a status, well, they are approaching a status where they are maxed out. And they can't always accommodate all the requests that they're getting. So something like this, we're seeing the need through the study. So this is just a couple images of the building today. Doesn't look so pretty on the interior, but we have been told that the bones of the building are in good shape and it could be retrofitted for other uses. And so, as I mentioned, the next steps of the study will be to develop conceptual models and diagrams and space planning of what if the Spiegel building was redeveloped for a public market, and what if a new building was constructed. So we can compare those two once we have more findings from them. So I'll stop there.
Questions from the council? Please continue.
Oh, okay. All right. Lastly, I think we want to talk about sequencing. This will be fast. This is something that we are working through momentarily, but we wanted to make sure it was brought into the conversation that we're talking about the sequencing and phasing, especially of the riverfront site, that could occur over time. We want to package together an actionable implementation plan at the end of this process that the city can take and start to implement over time with very quick hit short-term projects. So that is really our goal, that you guys will, when we come out of this, you have a project to line up and get into your capital improvement plan or start working with local partners on. So these are not in any order necessarily, but it is one order that we have conceived of, that you could focus your attention first on the Spiegel building and how that site could be reutilized. And with that, you would conceptually improve the adjacent streets closest to it. Another idea is you could focus on demolishing parts of the Bridgepoint building and starting to repurpose the parts of the building that you want to have as adaptive reuse. With that, you could prepare the rest of the exterior sites around the building. This is going to be a messy process. There could be some environmental remediation that has to happen as a part of the demolition. So we need to consider that too. It could be that doing this project makes the most sense to do first because it's the messiest. And once you can demo all that and kind of prep the site, then you can work your way out and start to implement other improvements. The Great River Park is a huge project in and of itself. Definitely catalytic in terms of its ability to draw developers for the future private development site. So that's something that we're looking at as something that can spur further growth within the plan. And then looking at these private development sites in blue, those are where we're going to try to entice developers to come in and build upon the site. Some of this might be public-private partnerships. Some of it might just be private. That's what we need to work through and understand, who's going to tackle these projects. And then, of course, in concert with some public improvements that are going to need to be made in terms of public roadways, right-of-ways, etc. Then as we work our way south, we're thinking more midterm. So those first couple projects, those were short term. Those are things that we can think about maybe in the next 0 to 5 years, depending on funding, depending on opportunities. Midterm, we can start to shift our focus south, looking at the Moline Center Gateway and the improvements there. We can also start to look at that I-74 corridor. I mean, those are things you're talking about today with the skate park already. So some of them might be short-term improvements, some might be longer term. And then that River East development, that might be a longer term project. Like we said, there's a lot of ownership issues, potentially uses that are established there. It might take longer to get this part of the site developed. But in the short term, maybe there's some public roadway improvements that can be had in that area to really prep that site for future development. Same with the Fifth Avenue hub. That might be a longer term reach. We don't really know. You could advertise it in the short term and maybe it takes 10, 15 years to actually come to fruition. But to have the idea there, that is something that could spur growth along Fifth Avenue. And then on the southern part of the study area, looking at additional private development opportunities and sort of capping off that I-74 area with a gateway park into the community from the south. So I'll just pause there. That's sort of the end of the presentation too.
All 55 slides.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great job.
Thank you for your patience.
Thank you so much. Is there anything else from the council?
Yes,
For sequence 2, it's labeled short term. From start to finish, how long would that take?
The demolition?
Yeah.
It's hard to say depending on the amount of environmental work that might have to take place. But it could be, a year process to dismember the building and take it apart carefully, do it the right way. We know that there are some contaminants in the soil. There's probably contaminants within the building as well that are going to have to be dealt with. So it's a process they probably want to be very careful about in terms of maintaining safety within the zone.
Thank you. I want to encourage the council to check the minutes for P&T because today we went through the vendor advisors, what they had to say about the building, legal building specifically. So after the slides shared that whole presentation. So that's out there for you to review. I encourage you to get through. There's a lot of information there. Pull it all together. Thank you so much. Oh, I forgot.
Yeah, I think one of the things that we really want to do, and maybe you can do it now, do it before you leave, is I'd really like to try to use those blue dots in front of you. For you to put those on elements of the vision plan. That you are supportive of. And the red ones are things that you think should not be there. I mean, you could blow off and be done with it. That's why they're red.
I think because of staff that are here to go through CIP, if we could do that before we leave.
That would be good.
I mean, we could do it before miscellaneous business, but let's flip to CIP. Is that okay?
Is there anything else for that?
There's an additional plan on the wall over here.
Yeah, I mean,
We're over there and two over here.
yeah, I would skip the utility plan and the flood plan. That's just for information, but the vision plan with the study area 4 and then over there at the Great River Park, it's a really front district, and then over there you can see, a little bit across the hub.
So I don't wanna waste anyone's time is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
Can I get a show of hands? Who would like to do this right now or do it right now? Everybody wants to do that, they wanna get to see it in Pete,
They're
so
all,
we'll,
And I can stay till the end too.
thank
So
you
I'm
so
here
much.
for, so I'd
Okay.
like to have additional conversations if people would like to.
Okay, that's great.
that's,
We'll move to 9.2 then, 2025 and 2027 capital improvement plan presentation. Ms. Barnes, welcome back. I'm so happy to see you. Please take us through this.
I'm very, very happy to see all of you. And just so you know, I've been working remote from home, working with Bob and with my staff. And I'm hoping to be back full time prior to the budget. So that's my plan. And for that, I don't know if you guys want to come up here too. I'm going to give a very brief overview. I want to take a few minutes and just update you on our audit. It's been out and it's very brief. And my intent here is to give you a comfort level of where our fund balances are going into the CIP discussion tonight, just so you know where the money is and so that you're comfortable with what the recommendations are that we can be funded. So in front of you, please find those internal financial statements. They are our preliminary general purpose financial statements. Baker Tilly will be presenting the final audit on July 9th. And although these are preliminary, we do not expect any material changes to these financial statements that are in front of you. It is currently, the audit's currently in partner review. We have kind of washed everything out already. So what I want to start out with is, first and foremost, the city is in excellent financial position as of December 31st of 23 and continuing on now year to date in 24. All, and the word is all, of our city's major funds ended the year within the city's fund balance policy, which is that 20 to 25 range. And some of them are outside of that range on the good side. And as you know, our intent is to fund that 20 to 25% of our existing fund balances to annual expenditures as well as our cash flow requirements. We always go through that area of budget. I just wanted to let you know that currently there are no findings from the auditors. All of our internal controls, like where we approve all of our accounts payable, any type of review, we had no internal control findings. We also had no material weaknesses or misstatements of our preliminary statements that we presented to the auditors. And one of the most important things is that we got a clean single audit. That is all of our federal grant money. And the brunt of that is made up through ARPA. And as you know, the compliance on the ARPA, the only word I can think of is horrendous.
I was thinking complex. It can be from your perspective, but I'm sure
Hard.
it is hard.
I mean, it's just
I like
every
the
little,
description.
every little dot, everything has to be crossed, the quarterly reporting, and they literally go through every single thing. And so our staff and all the departments that have projects, they've done an excellent job. So very quickly, I'm going to go through this so we can get to the CIP. First one will be, I want to highlight the general fund. So if you'd like to turn to page 3, and we're going to look at column 3 of the numbers. You will see there that the general fund, as of 12/31, we are ending the year $1.6 million to the good, like the actual. We had planned to draw that fund balance down 3.8 million. We came in at 2.1 million. So there's excess reserves. And the main reason, if you look up on the revenues, our revenues came in slightly more than what we had anticipated, not very much. And our expenditures were about 3% under, and it's largely due to vacant positions. Shouldn't even say largely, it truly was like almost 100%, mainly police and fire. So there made some good savings there. And so then if you flip back to page 2, and you look in the column 1 on the general fund, our ending fund balance currently is at $25,566,000. That fund balance to total expenditures is about 50%, okay? However, as you all know, and you guys can write this in because it's not on the notes in the financials, from that balance of the 25 million, we have to take away about $9.1 million for all the TIF advances that we cash flow. We also have restricted $1 million for those public pension obligation bonds for $1 million. So that takes us down to 15 million, about 15,400,000. So we are at 30.12% minus the TIFs, minus the pension obligation bonds. So Bob and I talked, and based on council's recommendation during the budget last year, we had said that if we had excess reserves, that Bob and I, we would like your consideration to draw some of those down and to place them in that special revenue fund that can help pay for the fire station or for some of these downtown projects. And our intent would be to consider that, every year.
Don't we have a fund for the fire station and a fund for special?
They're all combined.
Oh, they are combined, okay.
Yes, it's all in the same.
So I'd like some feedback right now.
Well, we can have feedback, always take feedback.
Certainly, council, I mean, that's just thumbs up for this. That's what the whole intent
Yeah,
of
it was.
putting that fund together. And it's,
Thank you.
thank you.
So we're all so happy about that, so thank you. And Bob and I, we already placed that in that fund, but I just want you to see where all the money is going. But it's very exciting that we have those kind of funds to kind of help jumpstart that. And so the next one, I'm just really gonna fly through these. The library on page 26, very high comments here. Look at the library, it's the third column in, Indian fund balance as of December was 943,000. They are at 31.4%. As they are paying for the garden, they're gonna be drawing some of those funds down over to basically the next 24 months or next 12 months. And we also set up a separate fund for the library garden fund. It's the next column in. As of December 31st, they have 57,000, but they've got a lot of funds from a lot of different sources being transferred in, almost 1,400,000 in the current year. So that project is totally funded in excess of $1.5 million for the garden project. So we're in really good shape with the library funds as well as that garden project. He's done an outstanding job being on top of that. On the Parks Fund, we're going to talk more about that in a little bit. The Parks Fund ended the year 12/31/23 with a 37.13%, but most of those excess funds were because we hadn't finished the pool yet from the spring. So you'll see that balance coming down as we look through a 5-year plan in a couple of minutes.
Tell us what page the Parks are.
So the Parks is just on that same page, 26, moving along the last column. 1.6 million, but again, that's not, you're gonna see that number going down, as we spend proceeds, for the pool in the current year.
What was that percentage, please?
We're at 37.13 as of December 31st, but it's going to go down, yes. The next one, just very high level, turn to page 60 on the CIP. Again, I'm just going to give you a feel that we've got money available. On page 60, let y'all get there. It's the first column of numbers, and you'll see the ending fund balance is $4,680,000. And I'm going to talk about how some of that hangover, wraps into the CIP now for 24. But we've got healthy reserves in CIP. Capital projects, if you look a little farther up, you'll see a total expenditure line. We did pay for $5.5 million of projects in 2023. And then moving on to MFT. Whoops, you know what? I skipped MFT. And if you don't want to go back, I'll just speak to it. It's on page 27, very similar to the CIP. On page 27, second column in. We're ending the year with $3.5 million in reserves, and they spent $2.6 million in total projects, total expenditures. 2/3 of the way down. And then we're going to take a look at just all the enterprise funds and internal service funds together. So if you turn to page 68, and we'll have lots of time to go through all this information here, as we head into budget that's coming up. We're gonna go through every fund by fund. You'll hear more than maybe you want to hear. But the enterprise funds, as you know, our cash reserves policy is to stay between that 20 and 25% minimum. If you move along the purple line that's right smack in the middle, right below the yellow on page 68. Oh, is everybody there? You will see where the water fund, WPC, stormwater, everyone is above that 25%. And as you know, we raised fees. I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but there's a trend over the next 3 years of capital projects being built. There's a reason why we tried to smooth those fees in over time. And then you'll see most of these fund balances are kind of starting to approach that 25, 27% range at the end of 3 years. So our plan is working. And then the same thing goes for our internal service funds that are on page 76. And I'm going to have you look at the purple lines on those two pages, 76 and 77. Again, you'll see active health and retiree at 52 and 165. Information technology is actually $1 million over our $250,000 policy, but we're using some of those reserves as we consider moving the council chambers downstairs. So some of those dollars are going to be spent on those types of upgrades. And then if you just move along the line on those purple lines, you can see the liability insurance, facility, every one of them are within our fund balance policy, as I talked about. And it's giving us some flexibility as we move into those 3-year budgets coming up.
So just to be clear for the public,
Yes.
just because our fund balances are up does not mean we're hoarding
Oh, no.
money. This is money that's going to be spent down based on our 3-year plan
Exactly.
for how to fund either special projects or major upgrades in utilities, et cetera, right? That's why we have to deal with fees, et cetera.
Yes.
So I just wanted to be clear.
Yeah.
Right?
And you will see all those being drawn down over a 3-year period.
Okay, great. And then,
It's fiscally responsible.
yes, thank you.
Maintain
Yeah.
healthy
Correct.
fund balance.
Correct.
Yes.
Yes.
All funds,
I mean,
so that you see no spikes in the future.
Correct. You all know for some time now that deferred maintenance is that I can't abide by it because it just makes the public have to pay even more down the road. So I appreciate your philosophy and the way you're working us through this. I had one other question. So when there are no findings from the auditors,
Yes.
right? That means that the new purchasing policy we put through is working.
Yes.
No one's abusing it, nothing, the watchdogs are there, everything.
We have
Checks
really
and
been
balances are
watchdog
out there.
Yes.
Thank you. Anything further from the council on this portion for this part? Thank you so much.
Just very, very,
Continue.
very high level. So now we're going to get into the round table. Does somebody have the?
Clicker? You want me to click it for you? I don't care. Plus it, money starting,
No, I'm just.
or you can let,
I'm just wondering where the financial part of it is.
oh,
I just did the slides. I can pull up the.
Carol's presentation, front end, she's looking for. Give us 1 second.
Yes, I actually need you to kind of see that. Hard to.
You'll be able to do it, correct, Mr. Rowan? In a second.
IT is all
Yeah.
Slide 46.
over. Oh,
Like 40 years.
Okay.
I think I have. I'm very curious. You know, hard copies.
She's bringing They all have their computers. So y'all have got this.
Oh, yeah, you're good.
So do you guys have it pulled up?
That's why.
Do you all have that? Can you make it clear to, Mr. Murphy, and then I'll look up at his, and we can keep going while David.
Got a financial, looks.
Yeah, Bob's got it here, you've got it, everybody's got it up.
So the very, here it is.
We just needed to be patient.
There, that's right. So the very first slide, although it is kind of small to see there, I'm glad you have it on your computers. This is a year over year of our budget to actual, going back to 2018. And what we wanted to show here is if you look at the final column, we always have some hangover from the previous year. And this year, in the CIP projects, if you look halfway down that page, we talked about there was $4,680,000 in the CIP projects. I wanted you to let you know that not only those, but the motor fuel underneath it of the 3.5 million. I talked with David and Laura. Almost all of those projects are currently under contract. The money just has not been spent yet. It was just a timing and a cash flow thing. But year over year, that's where the money is. And then this next one here, we're just going to talk in total. Our capital improvements fund, if you look down, it's the second column there, you'll see total expenditures of $10,803,000. That is the amount with the carryover for the remainder of 2024 that David and Laura have put together to show you. And as you move across those years into 25, 26, and 27, you've got 8 million, 6,000,003, and 6,000,003. All those projects are fully funded as recommended in your handouts. As we go to the ending fund balances, you'll see us getting close to our policy of maintaining a balance of about 300,000. So all of the funds in and out are obligated with the recommendations that David's put together. I might make note, just for your information, as you know, our ARPA funds are going to be running out in 26. That's part of the reason when you see transfers in of 700 and then 1.3, that's kind of the last of the ARPA funds going into CIP. And that's why the overall expenditures in CIP are kind of going down. So we're running through some of that money. So now we're going to look at it the same way with our motor fuel. Our ending fund balance, as we said earlier, was in 23, 3,500,000. And that balance is coming down in that $300,000 range over the next 3 years to out to 27. So that's your bottom line. Then if you look up on total expenditures, that's where you'll see all of the project money again, fully funded as David has presented it. For 2024, we are estimating $12,456,000 out of motor fuel. And that includes the carryover from 23. And in 25, we've got $22 million. And it's largely because we've got 7th Avenue, we've got federal funding and then the Arsenal decking. And then we come down to a lower level because again, there's no ARPA money. And then I think it's only one more page here, a couple more pages and we'll let David get started. On the water, and this is where we were talking about the fund balance. If you look at 2/3 of the way down the page in the pink or salmon colored, you'll see for that fund balance, it starts coming down to be more closer to within that 20 to 25%. And as we take this out into 28, 29 with our fees, we are actually starting to dip on the low side of 20%. So we are good through 2027 right now, but we're going to have to keep our eye on those fee increases ongoing. And it just depends on our labor costs, just your total inflation and whatnot. I do want to say that these cash flows as presented include all of the updated CIP projects that we're going to talk about. But the operating budgets, we're still using numbers that were built into the 24, 26 numbers because we have not finalized the operating budget. So we'll come back with those. So these numbers will slightly tweak, but we've got enough flexibility that we know that it's going to work. And then just one more thing that I should add, with ARPA being gone, starting to be gone by 2026, a large portion of, as you know, we've increased the CIP in the special improvement funds, and we're just trying to be more aggressive with CIP in total. Depending on the project, if they're road projects, it demands money, potentially having to raise them just slightly to keep pace. And then it's the same thing here. You turn the page for WPC. I think you can see that line, cash and investments. This one's a little bit unique because out in 2027, we've still got 170%. But what you don't see is the 28, 29, and that is our first debt installments on those loans for the South Slope construction. And as we head towards, I gotta see my notes, in 2031, we've taken it out as best we can. Again, just projections, but in 2020, it's already coming down to close to 21%, but it is handling that debt. So we're covered for sure within the 3 to 5 years, but we're just gonna have to keep our eye on it. And Tony has just done a fabulous job working with that and trying to incorporate all the construction costs. It's a moving target. And then lastly is the stormwater fund. You can see there in 23, we had a balance of 64%. I'm sorry, I'm not changing this here. And it's now dropping down to 30%. If you look at the highlighted red circle up above, where it says capital improvement projects, for those of you that were here a few years, and it literally was just a couple of years back, we virtually had no project money in stormwater. It was basically nothing. So now with the fee increases, you can see there is some sizable project dollars being able to be applied. So that's largely what that's going for. And that is it that I have on the financial. I'm gonna let David start, unless you have questions. I just wanted to give you a comfort level.
I just have a really quick question.
Yes.
On the, when we were talking about the stormwater funds where it says, recommended rate increase, is that over what we had already decided to put on that? So that's what we have.
It's following the
Okay.
plan. Good question.
Thank you.
Yes, are we gonna be able to sit down like we did last year to go over everything?
Oh, yes. That's
I
gonna
just wanna
be,
make sure that was an option.
oh, yes. That's gonna be coming up now during the summer. I'm hoping I can get on an off week, but I'm feeling good. But yes, we will go through all the detail, all the fee increases, all the cash, all of it.
I note that you mentioned a lot of savings was because of vacancies in police and fire. That's concerning to all of us because we certainly don't wanna overwork our police and fire. We're still in good shape even when we're paying all overtime for all these folks because we're not fully staffed.
Yeah, for 6:30, we came in fine. Yeah. And going into next year, we have funded, all the positions. We're hoping that they are going to be funded. So
Right, it's just translating that to being filled.
that is exactly correct.
Okay. Mr. Janine?
I gotta rewind a bit. That extra 5% we have on the general over policy.
Yes,
What is that amount?
it is. I actually got that written down. The total classes. That total was $3,629,004. So we're taking 2 million brings us down to 26.2%. And I'm sorry, I didn't say that earlier. I had it in my notes. When Bob and I talked, we thought that it would be nice to leave just a little bit of flexibility as we're heading in, just for the remainder of this year and heading into 25 budget. So that regarding raising taxes or anything, it gives us a little bit of wiggle room there to keep within our fund balance.
So we had 2 million in that fund already, kind of doubling it, the fire special
Projects fund.
right. Is that correct?
We already had said something.
Yeah, we had set 2 million apart, but this 2 million, as we go into that special projects, right now, because we needed cash flow to potentially pay for the land for the fire station, as well as the I-74 parcels, because last year we didn't have a number attached to that. The brunt of that $2 million is kind of getting paid out for those right away.
That's awesome.
No, it really is. It really.
Any other questions? All right, Mr. Dryer, you're up.
All right.
Yes.
Well, I had known that 53 slides was a target. I could have gotten.
Oh.
How many do you have?
I have half of it.
Okay.
So I'm going to go through it quickly. So that we can do this. So we had a pretty good budget, maintenance versus capital projects. Our maintenance categories are the things that, don't last as long. Pavement markings, joint sealing, asphalt overlays, heating replacements, those types of items. Then our capital category projects include reconstructions, resurfacings, bike head projects, sidewalks, utility projects, sewer lining, special projects like the Arsenal Bridge, CDBG funds for targeted neighborhood improvements, and the ever-present transfer of parks of $300,000. Jump on. I get that over. Anyways, this was just kind of, I identified CDBG funds and where neighborhood improvements could be used in that. And I just threw that slide in there just so people could see some of those areas of the city that would apply to. So our project selection is, we want to pick projects that are consistent with the city strategic plans and goals. We look at the pavement condition. We look at the status of the underground infrastructure, tones infrastructure. We look at the age of streetlights, traffic signals. We'll consider the functional class of a street, the volume of traffic, proxy for how many people use it. And then there's also federal funding projects that we're eligible to apply for, and those generally apply to our collectors and arterial streets. So we look at our pavement condition. We've talked about this before. It's an objective measure used developed by the federal government to provide an objective way of identifying what pavements that they're responsible for, air bases and things of that nature to address. And that looks at all types of pavement distress, the big long list there, and the ever-present persistent nuisance potholes. Our street classes, functional class comes from the state and the federal highway. They don't just let the city engineer decide what streets are arterials and therefore eligible for federal funds. It's all determined by the state and federal government. So this kind of gives you an idea of those streets. The green are minor arterials. We get a few of those. Many collectors, and predominantly our streets are residential. It's just, here's a map I threw in that you can't see from where I'm sitting, at least, of traffic volumes on some of the city streets. You can get this off the IDOT website if you're so inclined, but it shows the higher volumes on the arterial streets for the collectors, and residential streets show, of course, be lower. So how much does the city maintain? We maintain 235 miles of street. 54% of it are residential streets. 28 miles are collectors. 20 miles of minor arterials, and 9% interparcels are streets like Park Road and things. Alleys account for 16% or 38 miles, and seal coats are 7%.
That's center line, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
No, if it's lane, much larger.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. So what are the streets conditions? As I said, we have 235 center line miles of street that we maintain. The average pavement condition rating for Moline is 59, which is a high fare. It's gone down a bit from previous years, but as we construct streets, the model ages the other streets. So we're kind of trying to get into that balance. Overall, our minor arterials are in better shape than most of our streets, and that's
a good thing, because those are the streets that the majority of people use. You know, as residential streets or asphalt streets are in the toughest shape. And of course, our alleys, the asphalt segments of alleys are our poorest streets at 34.6, which puts them down in the marginal category, the poor category. Again, I kind of created a spreadsheet just to sort of pavement condition by type for arterials, collectors, residential. So it just shows that 87% of the arterials are in good through excellent condition. And that kind of decreases as you get towards your alleys and your seal coat street projects. Just to give you an idea on that. And the end result is a map that you can access on the internet that shows the pavement condition ratings by those numbers over in the legend throughout the city, just to give you an idea of what that looks like. Our projects starting in 2025. 2025, we're proposing 1.6 center miles of street. First one is 5th to 6th Avenue. It's a very poor street, $350,000 project. And we have the 19th Avenue resurfacing from 7th to 16th Street. That's phase 2 next year. First phase this year is from the Rock Island Corporate Livings to 7th Street. And I say that's a A project, so we're able to leverage that funding for that. Then we have 7th Avenue reconstruction, which was a project that's being partially funded through the State Department of Commerce. We're working on that. Always proceeding with trying to get the 16th Street Viaduct funded. The application for the Defense Community Grant was submitted yesterday.
It was submitted yesterday, 1 week ahead.
A week ahead. It's good work.
Thank you, Dawn Temple.
We have a traffic signal at River Drive and 12. We have the quiet zones in there, which are indicated by the little locomotives. And I had a 23rd Street that's kind of off the map, but I didn't want to forget it. 7th Avenue. 30th Avenue reconstruction is a very expensive project that we were able to do with Carol doing some of her magic with the funding and reallocating some ARPA funds. It's a $2.6 million project with extensive underground utilities. The street's in poor condition. It's a collector's street. It's one that there's been interest in doing for a number of years. So we were able to get that. Morgan Park Phase 1, we're still working out the design changes that we're pursuing to minimize the impacts to the residents along the project's past backyards and things. We have the mirror Mississippi River to Rock River Path Phase 2 in there. That's through high-tech grant. Morgan Park Phase 1, I mentioned that. Okay. Streetscape, starting the River Drive Phase 2.
The Wildwood Wall.
Wildwood Wall down there. That's my last one on my table, so that's why you got to.
So that's our responsibility, not the.
Yes. Yes.
Hmm.
We're
There was a
going
question
to
from-
eliminate a maintenance problem, it's a serious problem that fences.
We're taking it on, or originally, no, it's always ours.
It's always that.
Okay, that's very helpful to know.
We secured the services of an engineering firm to go through and develop options from strictly utilitarian, what you need to do to provide for a safe street and keep errant vehicles from leaving the roadway, to more aesthetically pleasing visual separations from 7th Street to the neighborhood, and with those costs, and then it'll be the council's decision to. pick
Which option, okay. Very much appreciate that. Have had residents reach out about that. I'm sure those older persons have as well. Same thing with 30th Avenue. Thank you for doing what you've done to get that project done, because it's been serious complaint, and I've driven that many times.
Oh, I
and
know, it's
awful.
It's been referred to as a chocolate chip cookie.
I
know. I did not make that one.
I don't get pretty good.
There was so many faults, they had so many patterns that looked like a cookie. Ex-alderman went.
All right.
Give credit where credit is due.
Kudos on the mirror path number 2. That's a big undertaking.
But Lori's handling that, she does good work.
Are you on 2026 now?
Yeah, there, let's see, we got 34th Street, that was a project that was supposed to go this year. IDOT is the latest, like some environmental restrictions, so we have to work on that. And
Does that include the intersection improvements? Well, okay,
with what?
the intersection improvements at 34th. That included in there.
Some of them on, we're making changes on the west side for pedestrian.
What I thought.
Yeah. Yep. And the 7th Street and 16th Street intersection was a leftover from the 7th Street project. It's an intersection that's in very poor shape that we'll also 2026 project. $1.68 miles, 6 major reconstructions. Start here with our alley resurfacing program. The thing we want to do is try to, we haven't identified any alleys, but we want to do is try a program where on those alleys that aren't so far gone, that instead of reconstructing, they strictly be resurfaced. So we think that we could extend the amount of work in alleys and save the city significant money while covering much larger areas. Let's see, we have the 16th Street from 19th Avenue to just north of Avenue of the Cities. It's a minor arterial street. That's a federal aid project that we were able to secure through bi-state. It's a street that's in poor condition. We also have 16th Avenue there on the lower left from Rock Island. Corporate limits to 7th Street. That's also a major collector in 4th Street. We have 4th Street on the side of backside of Stevens Park, which is a poor condition pavement, about 2,000 feet of that. The far right is 11th Avenue C. That's a street that we need to do because of the condition of the utilities. Go back to the slide. There are a number of streets off of 16th, 25th Avenue, and 26th Avenue between 15th and 16th Street. Both of these streets are very poor local streets, and we were able to tackle those. We also picked up a number of intersection reconstructions here. Those yellow stars, I can't see, my glasses are so bad. 12th Street and 12th Avenue intersection, and 10th Street and 11th Avenue intersections. So we got those. We also picked up Old Oakwood, which was an golf course at one time that was taken out when 74 was put through and developed as residential. We have some failing subgrade there that we want to tackle and replace and deal with that. We're also updating our pavement management survey in 26, something we want to do every 4 to 5 years to get an idea of where we stand with respect to the model. We got some streetlight modifications from 4th to 6th. It's that very thin line there by where Mercado is. And then we have, I'm sorry, Bob, you want to see that there? It's just that little piece there between 4th and 6th. Well, I also have a lighting project across the interchange of Avenue of the Cities. It's very old, high voltage system. Definitely needs to be replaced for safety reasons. Say about that. Okay. 1.4 miles of streets. We didn't identify any alleys because you don't really know how things will fare over the next coming winter. So we'll identify those as we get closer to that year. We have 15th Street resurfacing. It's a minor collector, believe it or not, in the neighborhood there, just west of 16th Street and south of 23rd Avenue. in marginal condition. Same thing with asphalt resurfacing. We'll identify those projects as we get closer and we have updated the model and things, and we have a better idea of that. We have 41st Street, River Drive to 4th Avenue. Street with frequent complaints, but it's in poor condition and services connection to the river, and there's some residential industrial uses up there. So we like to tackle that project.
Moline Forge is on the corner at
Yes,
this
exactly.
location.
Yeah. 10th Avenue Place is just a very poor street, very expensive project. The traffic signal at 51st Street in Avenue City, very old traffic signal. The equipment needs to be replaced. We'll make pedestrian improvements and look to see what we can do with realigning lanes through there. All right, we got the Avenue Cities and 53rd Street reconfiguration, River Drive streetscape. We're going for an ITAP grant this fall, and so we're entering begin to work with what's her name, or Hutchinson Engineering to do that, to replace the sidewalks, streetlights and things. We also have programmed some improvements to the parking ramps of the city, the Center Station Garage, the Heritage Garage, and the Midtown Garage. We're undertaking a condition assessment of those facilities this year, so we don't know yet what they will find, if they'll find anything that's structurally problematic that needs to be addressed right off. Tackle that. And that's the project. We're in a little piece of 17th Street there. 17th Street is in terrible condition, and we'd like to start tackling it, and with the available funds, we're able to get just a small section of it down to the south from 12 to 11. Something that we want to continue to keep tackling through there. Those are the projects in a nutshell. Missed it. Oh, I did this slide, which I was pretty proud of myself. What? How do I get it to do that on graphic?
Oh, you mean turn it on? Oh yeah, this is great.
It won't blink. It's supposed to blink. David, hit enter or something.
David, make it work.
No, if I hit a
You
button,
work hard.
it moves the slide away.
It probably lost it when I went to media.
Oh, no.
That's it, I'm going home.
David, actually.
It was supposed to blink so you could actually see overlaid the streets that are in the program budget with those streets that are in full or very quick. Just to kind of give you a graphic idea of where we're tackling. And you can see there's clearly a need, and we're working at it, and so we will continue to work at it. Hopefully someday it'll all be green or less red.
Thank you.
So thank you, everybody.
You have time for questions or comments?
No, my slides didn't flash on going. Of course I do.
Just for the council members' benefit when they're asked by constituents why their streets aren't getting done right now. When they see their need, but when you're in charge of the entire network, I've had a chat with some, and the entirety of the network, what we're doing to provide equity with regard to whose roads are getting taken care of and why is really important for our residents to understand. So can you give them a few bullet points about what I heard was we use the PCI index, which
We do, it's a
to help
fact.
determine
Yeah.
what gets done
But it's
first,
not
right?
the only
Right.
thing.
The other things would be
We
utilities,
look at utilities.
what needs replacement.
Exactly. And we do try to address streets that have a history of being problematic with respect to people's concerns. And we do try to spread projects around so that we're not just getting a squeaky wheel. We look to move it. We look at, if we're doing asphalt overlay maintenance, we should look at, maybe we need to do some other paving in that neighborhood as well. But the one program is for seal coated street. And so the pavers show up to address that, but then there are other streets that are just as bad and people don't understand why they aren't being paved as well. So we need more funding and to tackle more of these residential streets, I agree. But the goal is to try to maintain what you have in good shape, but also at the same time getting the poor streets. We just only have so much.
Right, so you said we are up for a new PCI report
Yes.
card by 2026?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we at our, remember, wasn't it we had to spend an additional 2 million every year to even maintain what they
I think
said?
I think it was.
Up to 3.
Up to 3, yeah. So I'm sorry, I haven't put the numbers together. Are we at that spot to maintain network?
I think we need some more. I think we would definitely see some benefits from it, yeah.
So budget time, we just need a refresher, especially folks who weren't here for the adoption of the PCI index and the recommendations. We need a refresher on how much money we're supposed to be spending on road reconstruction or rehab, et cetera, to maintain the network and or improve it.
It was 7.
It was 7 million to maintain.
Ooh,
7 mil, that's correct. Right.
Okay, thank you.
So how does that work? Do they go and they redo the roads or
What
do they?
what they do is they have a van that's equipped with all kinds of video cameras, lasers, and they actually record the pavement and see cracks that my eyes can't see. And they take that back and it's machine processed and they run it through their systems and it determines what condition they give it.
So will they do that again fully
Yes.
in 2026?
Yes. And because it's difficult for us to rate a street, for example, we do a lot of patching. So I could tell the people that, go out there and put that segment at 100, but that probably isn't real what it should be. Like technically need to be at a 75. So rerunning that'll be a good thing.
Thank you. We'll move to water equipment, Mr. Lodi.
My presentation should go relatively quick because Carol and I will be back in front of you in September to do a detailed analysis of the projects and the O&M pieces of the utility budget. So the theme of this presentation is going to be that the recommended projects that we're bringing forward for buried piping are going to be closely aligned with the projects that David has brought forward with the street projects. And sometimes it's just based on the luck of the draw. Our buried piping is behind the curb and it doesn't necessarily need to be replaced when they replace the road. But in this case, for the next 3 years, there's a lot of alignment. So we're going to get, the city is going to get a lot of bang for the buck. So I'm going to run through also the water and WPC and storm equipment and vehicles also, but I'll make quick work of this. These are the projects that are underway at the water treatment plant. We're working on a cybersecurity project. It's spread over 2.5 years. There's we're working on replacing both of the boilers at the water treatment plant this year. Dehumidification controls and head house air conditioner. And then one of the projects that administration was excited about was the Neptune, what's called our Neptune Gateway, where we're installing a meter reading collector on top of the 17th Avenue water tank. So we'll be able, instead of doing drive-by meter readings in the proximity of that tank, we're not exactly sure what kind of coverage we're going to get, but we'll have fixed reading coming in that proximity to that tank. Here's the water vehicles and equipment over the next 3 years. We pending the success of this gateway installation that we're doing now. It was actually just installed last week. We're proposing some more of those collectors in 2025, next phase of the cybersecurity project at the water treatment plant. And then the water treatment plant hasn't had a planning study done for it since 2002. And so we're in the process of having an engineer conduct a planning study to help us prioritize the needs and within the water treatment plant, give us kind of a roadmap for capital improvements over the next 10 years. So we're anticipating some needs there. And so as that study comes forward, we'll bring it to you for your perusal and adoption. But we're anticipating an unknown project coming in 2025 in the amount of $750,000. Same thing in 2026. We applied for some funds for PFAS mitigation through Illinois EPA State Revolving Loan Fund. I think I might have mentioned this last week. So that's why that is shaded yellow, because there'll be some offsetting revenue. The state has some principal forgiveness for strictly for emerging contaminants. And then the next item there is our maintenance garage. There is an issue with our maintenance garage in that the garage was built for our water crews. We currently have the water, stormwater, and sewer crews in there, and that's something that kind of aligns with what Brett was talking about earlier, in that whether or not the crews are going to stay in that location is yet to be seen. But know that at some point in the future, we're going to need to spend some money to properly house our field crews. We ended up cutting this project or deferring this project in the interest of sticking with the cash flow and staying with our financial plan. 2027, we've prioritized another $750,000 investment in the water treatment plant. And then over on the right, you can see some vehicles. These vehicles on top are the vehicles that our meter readers use. We expect to convert over to electric there. And then the 701, it's a pickup truck used by our water distribution team. 711 in 2026, we expect to convert that vehicle over to electric as well. And then our loader backhoe for the water distribution team is due for replacement as well. So here's the investments in the water distribution system. And like I said earlier, the projects in 2024, they're underway. Some of them are complete. 2025, 2026, and 27. I'm not going to go through them one by one because they almost very closely align with the projects that David and Laura have brought forward. Any questions on those before I move on? Okay. So here's one thing I did want to comment on is that the lead service line replacements are highlighted in yellow because we expect to receive state revolving loan funds for that. And at some point, either in September or in advance of September, we'll be in front of you. I've talked to Bob and Carol about potentially front loading a bunch of work on the lead service line replacements. We have an opportunity that I think is good. So we'll be back in front of you. So just know that there may be a larger chunk of those done in 2025. But our plan is to do $3 million a year. Here's I showed you this back in April. This is the disbursement of the lead service lines throughout the community. This is just some of the challenges that our water distribution team deals with. This is a pipe that they worked on last week up there on the left, and then the one in the center is a piece of cast iron pipe. It's just typical of our water distribution system where you have some corrosion growing on the inside of the pipe. Water remains safe. That you might see some iron particulate, but we all need iron to live.
Messages, just drink it.
So water pollution control. Here's the current year, 2024. We're underway with South Slopes design. We're about 30 to 40%. We also have a project at North Slope to install some dewatering equipment that's almost complete. Excess flow clarifiers at South Slope are almost complete as well. And then we have some projects that have yet to be initiated, but we do anticipate getting to them yet this year. There's some vehicles there as well. We've already ordered and council has authorized that, that Vector truck earlier this year. Here are the field projects. Oh, I'm sorry, no, these are the equipment projects for WPC, and you can see the green are those that are funded with EPA loans. And then you can see also that because that maintenance garage is shared by the WPC crews, we've deferred that on the WPC side as well, but know that it exists there, and they would pay their share when if that project happens. And then you'll see that we've programmed some construction expenses in there for 2025, 26, and 27. That's just anticipating what we expect to spend as South Slope construction begins. WPC vehicles. There's a number of vehicles in the list. Some of them we expect to convert over to electric just because we believe that we can be more efficient with electric vehicles. Here's the sanitary sewers. I'm not going to go through them at all because once again, they very closely align with the street projects. There are some projects I will say that if you think about the interceptor sewer that was in Brett's presentation there on the Riverfront Master Plan, if you follow that pipe all the way to the easterly toward the river, the Ben Butterworth Parkway, that pipe is prone to some overflows from time to time during wet weather. And we had an engineer recommend to us to upsize that pipe and just like it is down on 19th Street, it's very costly to replace. So we've decided to instead to invest our money in controlling the infiltration and inflow. And so we're, for the first time, going to invest in some smoke testing. And we've actually got an advertisement out for that now. That's, we believe, more responsible use of the utility fees to try and control leakage and subsequent treatment into our sewers. So that'll be a theme. And then also we're going to try and use trenchless means. Here's some graphics that show what the smoke testing looks like. These were not taken in Moline, but you know, when we actually do this, there'll be signs that we'll put out in the neighborhoods where you know, when we inject the smoke into the sewers, and we'll coordinate with our friends over in the fire department to ensure that you know, we don't cause alarms here. There was also a skid steer that was in the budget. We proposed to purchase a skid steer in 2025 that would be shared between our stormwater utility and our sewer utility that would allow us to get down in some of the ravines and also in some of the box culverts where we have substantial problems. We would be able to equip this skid steer with a hose reel that would allow us to clean the sewers. One of the things that makes our community nice is that we've got these wooded lots, but those wooded lots, whether you know it or not, are filled with sewers. And so we have to get down there to clean those. And so having a similar to what Denver and Eric have with the remote control mower, we're going to look at something like that. Okay, stormwater. The stormwater fund projects are the same. They align very closely with the street improvement projects. One of the recommendations that came out of the stormwater master plan that was presented to council was that the goal of the stormwater utility is not to convey, but to try and control or detain. And so we want to install some green components into some of these street projects. So we'll be working with Laura as she designs these streets to ensure that we incorporate some green aspects or detaining aspects into those street improvement projects. So you'll see, rather than your typical inlet that sits along the edge of the curve, you'll see something like what's on the right or the left there. This one over on the right was actually taken from Davenport. So as the water flows into the gutter of the street, some of it can flow in and provide some water to that tree. And then once the tree box gets filled up, then the rest of the water conveys down the street. It percolates in. So you'll see that on the presentation there, those that have the green designation after the location, we expect to incorporate some detention into those projects. And then there are a few vehicles and pieces of equipment that the stormwater utility, as I think it was Carol said earlier, we're building the stormwater utility kind of up from scratch to some extent, and the people that work in on that system tend to have all the hand-me-down vehicles, the ones that were at the end of their useful life already, and so these vehicles that you see on this list have already been retired one time, so they will truly be at the end of their useful life. Okay, and these are some other aspects that Andy sent me of components and features that we'd like to see incorporated into some of the drainage as we install new roads. And that's it for mine. Any questions?
I have a question concerning the lead line. When we go to replace them, some residents might ask, are they gonna have to be under a boil order, or how long they're not gonna have water?
There'll be really good communication. That's actually required that we have a really good communication protocol with them. But as we mentioned previously, the lead service line, the lead and copper rule revisions goes into effect in October, and we'll be required to not only have advanced communication with the property owner, but we'll have to deliver a filter on the day that we replace the service line, and then we'll also be following up with them with sampling and lead analysis.
And how long does the sampling go on? Was it 6 months?
6 months, yes.
6 months of sample. Every.
You use the word convert to electric. Are you meaning acquire new electric, or are we actually converting?
No.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we would transition from a gasoline vehicle to one.
That's cool if we did, but I made it.
Thank you very much. Who's next?
Parts.
And I would just like to add, we are not asking for any action tonight, but regarding the CIP projects that we just discussed with David and Tony, I would like direction if you want us to back for further discussion on the 18th. Otherwise, we can have a resolution drawn up for July 9th. But we'd like to get in the queue so that engineering can start engineering these projects so that we're out in front of it for next year.
And this what just receives.
We can always add more stuff.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so.
Until we adopt the budget.
Okay.
Seeing thumbs up for moving forward, your recommendations, so you can do it too.
Great. Should you want us to bring a resolution on the 18th or further discussion on the 18th or wait till the 9th?
Absolutely need for the discussion.
Okay,
Bring it
that's great. We'll get it going.
CIP.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Parks and Recreation projects. So as some of you know, or should know, we adopted a new master plan this past February. So what you'll see in 25, 26, and 27 are taken from the master plan, pretty much taken from the master plan. That plan was approved with the hope of funding for capital improvement projects about $1 million a year going forward to help maintain what we have. As you see in 25, 26, 27, we're not quite at that, but hopefully over time we'll be able to build up to that. So starting in 25, we need to replace the boiler at the greenhouse. Funding for lease facilities, that's something that we've started the last couple of years. You know, we have Music Guild, we've got several soccer groups, we have Moline Little League. All of those are city facilities. And as projects become more and more expensive, we've been able to help them out. 2 years ago, we replaced the roof at the Music Guild. This past year, we updated some sidewalks at Moline Little League and also did some electrical work there as well. So we have scaled that back. In the past, we've asked for about 50,000. Next year, we're asking for 25. Once that number's approved, we have some ideas, but we'll ask for more input from the organizations as well. Picnic tables and bench upgrades. That's something that the park board has been working on for a number of years, converting all of our benches, all of our picnic tables to metal. It does cost quite a bit more, but after this year, we pretty much hit all the major parks except for Millennium and Riverside, and then we'll just start knocking off some of the little parks. We've made a huge investment. We have probably $100,000 worth of picnic tables ready to be installed because it's taken so long to get them coming out of COVID. But we have them for Stevens, East End, Ben Butterworth Parkway. We've got some ones for Kiwanis Park and some other smaller ones as well. So we're starting to install those as well. The Riverside scope and pipe liner. So as part of the project, we pressure tested the existing pipes, leak detected them, and then had a company come in and do some scoping on the two pipes that were not holding pressure. And that's one of the reasons why when Carol gets to talk about the fund balances, which was 35 or 37%, it's projected at the end of this year to go down to 15%, and then it'll slowly climb up over the next couple of years. We found that the two pipes had major cracks in them, and we were able to save money by bringing in a company that lines pipes for a living. They were not able to scope all of the remaining pipes because we were getting close to the season. So this is more of an insurance policy that in the fall and the spring, just making sure, since we did not replace the main body of water. I will say back in 2022, at the end of the season, we were losing about 36,000 gallons of water a day. And we are under, right around 3,000 right now. That also includes evaporation and people using the water. So less than 10% of what we're losing is not a scary number for swimming pools. I've done pools that have been 50, 60,000 gallons a day, and they've taken the water meters off and said, it is what it is. So just want you to be aware of that. I don't want to, move forward with this brand new facility and then have an issue down the road. I don't anticipate anything, but just an insurance policy. We also do 1 or 2 parking lots a year. This is one of the last ones in Riverside Park to do. This is behind the pump house. And then playground. So the Moline Little League playground, the Rounding Park playground, which I'll show on the next couple of slides. Riverside, the Little League looks, the colors and stuff kind of go with like a baseball glove. That park, we try to replace playgrounds every 20 years. This one's about 16 years old, but it's just a cheaper, less reliable brand, and it needs to be replaced next year. So as you can see, pretty small, pretty basic, but also much better than what they currently have, and kind of has picture or colors of a baseball glove and some accents that you can't really see there, but it's baseball themed. So that'll be a fun one. So Browning Park, this one is quite a bit different than what is currently in Moline. We're actually going to do 2 different options. This one is the more extreme looking one. We're also going to do one that's more of your typical playground, and we're going to let the citizens of Moline decide. The exciting thing about this one is we're proposing to put a rubberized surface here, and there's several pieces of this that are inclusive, where there's really only one playground. All of our playgrounds in Moline meet ADA compliant, but that's like a scale, A, B, or C. It's a C. We're trying to get higher up in that, and this one brings us to a more inclusive play in Moline. So how are we going to pay for this? So a couple of years ago, half of you were on the council at the time, we were able to get a grant through Game Time to basically do a buy one, get one free playground. And that's what I'm proposing, that we actually buy the playgrounds in 2024, pay for it out of our reserves, so we draw down even more, and then put that money back into our reserves in 2025. As you can see here, those 2 playgrounds are $336,000. With that grant, you get about $165,000. We did that with Stevens Park and East End Park a couple of years ago, and basically got East End for free. Same thing, we would get basically Moline Little League for free. We would have to, cost of installation, that can vary. We can do the install, but if we do a rubberized surface for Browning, they'll have to do the install. make sure it's done right, and then do the rubberized surface. As you can see, the rubberized surface is not cheap. Browning is one of our bigger playgrounds, and it's two separate structures. That little one is for 2 to 5 year olds, and then the bigger structure is 5 to 12. So it's about $160,000 for a rubberized surface, and that's what we would apply for an OSLID grant in 2025 for. Would be about 80,000. So it doesn't quite bring it up to the 400,000, but there are some unknowns, dirt work, concrete work, that we just don't have quite a price tag. Even if we did get the OSLID grant, we could install the Little League playground ourselves, save about 30 or 40,000, and that we could pretty much make up the OSLID grant. But this would be the second playground in Moline that would have a rubberized surface. In our master plan, we talk about 5 parks and having rubberized surface at them. I'm proposing a rubberized surface in 25, and then in 29, Prospect Park, kind of doing the bigger parks in Moline as we replace them. They're not cheap, but way better for our community. Any questions over 2025? Yes.
I have a question. You brought up inclusive play. When we look at Moline Little League, are you able to interchange some of the play equipment down by the river? You know how we have the blue slides. The blue slides you can use for some disabled kids. Are we able to switch that out? It's by an area where everybody's playing baseball. You have all those families, so those families are going to utilize that park. So just making it inclusive so everybody can do it.
So none of these layouts are set in stone yet. We're still working. So the grant's not going to be due till late October. But 2 years ago, it's like we had to approve the layouts and approval in the same meeting. And this is a big project for us, and I just want to make sure that we do it right. So these are the first layouts that we've received. I have not met with them on feedback or anything like that. So it's definitely, I'm sure there's some things that we can change.
Any other questions? Let's continue.
Okay, 2026, same thing. Funding for lease facilities, bench upgrades, outfield upgrades at Green Valley. Our irrigation is very old there. Depending on how our feasibility study turns out, that might not be needed, but I'll explain that in a little bit. Resurfacing of the tennis courts, it puts us right about 5 years. That's not quite a hard number just yet.
You mean the pickleball?
Yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say?
Tennis.
Okay. That puts us right about 5 years for the pickleball courts. And they are getting some heavy use. Usually it's 5 to 7. It's probably going to be at the 5 year. New playground at McCandless, and then trying to finish up some of the road work that we've started at Riverside 3 years ago. We've asphalt overlaid the Moline Memorial, just trying to finishing up, getting our cemeteries in good shape, putting Riverside in shape, some of those bigger projects. Questions over 26?
How old is McCandless Park?
It's actually oldest. It's our oldest one that we have right now. It's 21 years old. Doesn't get as much use as.
So is that why you would replace that one before you?
Correct. Yeah. So really, this one should have been on the list for this year for replacement or 2025. But with the usage of it, it's still in pretty good shape. Same thing, the top two. Then the Ben Butterworth Parkway Master Plan. Those are the starting to knock off some of the things on our master plan. That was the number 2, I believe, for master planning. The biggest thing with 26, 27 and further, as they kind of change every year, just depending on how the wear of the parks and whatnot are going, we continue to follow our Parks and Rec master plan and then update accordingly. But putting in Ben Butterworth Parkway as our first kind of master plan past the feasibility study of Green Valley. Doing some seal coat for the Harold's Landing in the Green Valley Nature Preserve, and then a new maintenance garage at Riverside Park. That is something that should have been done probably a decade ago. That's something that we share with Moline Little League. It's in rough shape right now, but it's 2027. Okay.
If I could, just before we go into the special projects, for those of you that have the financials, it was at the very first part of the parks. I just want to make mention, as Eric did, these financials include all those projects that Eric just went through. It's the new revised master plan of $700,000 to $800,000 a year. And you will see the fund balance, as Eric had mentioned, we were currently at 37. We're dipping down to the 15 because of the change orders, as well as, what was the other one?
So the lining of the pipes was a pretty big one. And then we also, the parking lot phase 2 for Riverside, the Mausoleum Road had some really bad soil, and we actually had to dig down much further. The project came in under budget, but then ended up going, not a lot over, but it's substantial.
And then cash flowing that park in the 24 year. Those two playgrounds is part of the drawdown to 15%. And then again, we are in good shape by the end of 3 years, and that's why you have a fund balance so that you can offset those.
You don't comment on your pool revenue.
Absolutely.
Really good news.
So I think probably in the next day or two, we'll break what we sold about $114,000 worth of goods and services back in 2022. We're probably going to beat that probably by Thursday or Friday this week. We've been open, our first 2 weeks of the pool season has been, weekdays 4 to 8, and then the weekend. So we really just started opening, regular hours at noon every day. We've done $24,000 in concessions, where we sold $29,000 in 2022. Our portion is just under 6,000 people coming that have paid through. That does not include the number that the Y, and I don't have an update from that, but I will. I get it every month to present to Park Board. I'll also present it to you. But right now it seems like paid admissions is higher than the Y admissions. So we're definitely between the 10 and 12,000 person mark, and we had just over 18,000 people come in 2022. We have sold out several days on the weekends. And with weather coming up, being hot Wednesday through the next couple of weeks, I anticipate that to continue to grow. Now, with that, we've had some issues at the pool. We've had some fights, we've had some fence jumpers, we've had some issues in the parking lots, and that's something. The next projects are some ideas that we would like the council to consider as we're talking about extra funding or the special event, the special projects funding. Is security cameras. So we did put conduit in at the pool, but we did not put security cameras. Unfortunately, we've had some fights, and just we don't want to make this an unsafe location. So we've actually worked with the Moline Police Department as of right now to have a police officer there on overtime, and then hopefully in the next week or so transition to like an unarmed security officer. We had that over the weekend, a police officer, and they broke up a fight on Sunday. Staff felt much more at ease being able to enforce the rules of the facility and making sure that people are safe and not having to worry about, if there's going to be a fight of teenagers or so.
Would these cameras be tied into the city's network, or are they independent?
It would be tied in. Yes.
Could you also ban people?
So we can. It's a challenge since we don't have our own software like the Y can. So the Y has banned people in their memberships. And what they do is they go and jump the fence and come back in. And we've caught several of them and able to ban them. But it is a challenge because we don't have pictures of every person that comes in. And even if we kick them out, unless we call the police department and ask them to take the picture, they're not going to let us take their picture, and they're not going to, if we ask for their parents' phone number, they're not going to give it to us, so we can call them and say, we just kicked your kid. So special consideration for some security cameras, not just at Riverside Park, but also some at Green Valley Softball Complex. We've had some incidents over there as well, especially this past weekend. We've had a golf cart stolen. And some fuel stolen there from breaking through breaking some of the locks that we have out there. It's probably time, unfortunately. This is just all coming up the last couple of weeks. I don't have a solid number on this, but I do know all the little spots on there. 2 years ago, the cost was $87,000 to buy cameras for that. That was not the cable, but I don't think we need that many. I don't think we need to put that many at Riverside, but I'll be working on some cost estimates.
You think of the vigilance cameras that we use throughout the city.
Yeah. Any questions over that? Any more questions?
I was just wondering if, like geo-fenced anything in terms of like where people are coming from, and if that North School opening next year will decrease our numbers. I mean, you're right, it's a double-edged sword, be like the revenue, but also overcrowding can lead to some of these issues.
We have not looked. I mean, I can get that. I have not looked to see where they're coming from at this point. But I can definitely get that information and show us where's everyone coming from.
I mean, I think I'm only bringing it up in terms of being prepared for the following season, and any dip in revenue, et cetera, or, you know.
So we're definitely going to exceed what we had thought we were gonna get. But I also want to be cautious and say, if we have 40,000 people, I'm not expecting 40,000 next year. To be cautiously optimistic about what.
And weather can be a factor too.
Absolutely. Yeah. And as the years go on, the newness wears off as well.
I just want to thank our park school staff because this has been a heavy load since you opened.
It's been intense. It's been fun, but I never thought we would get this many people already.
Staff enjoying it.
They're enjoying it with some security staff there, yes.
Okay. I feel safe.
Yes, the Moline Police Department, QCOM has come talk to them. They've done a great job so far. And the staff enjoy working there. I tell them, you know, regardless of if there's some fighting or not, this will be the best summer job that you ever have. And I would think that most of them agree. So as some of you know, we brought a turf project last year that was not funded in the budget. We did, as part of a grant, hired TAG Project Management LLC to do a feasibility study of different upgrades to the facility. They do facility studies all across the United States, college, high school, professional, municipal, about possible upgrades and looking at what the economic impact and what our region can hold. And some of the things that they'll be looking at is turf, shade, additional fields, seating, programming, sponsorships, parking lot updates, lighting upgrades. That will be coming back in August. They've already gone through our facility. They are very impressed with the upkeep on it and see a lot of potential there. So we'll have to see how that comes back. That'll be, once it's adopted by Park Board at the end of August, we'll bring it the beginning of September and talk about it with city council. Okay. The I-74 skate park pump track, we did receive a tentative permit this past spring. So we did do the conceptual design for 30%. So that is completed. We have the tentative permit with of things that we need to continue to do if we want to build under there. So as you can see, this hasn't changed since it was presented back in February or March. If we do all the phases, it'll be about 3.3 million. We can do more, we can do less. Just want to keep that in the back of your minds as we're talking about the special projects fund. Questions over that?
Yeah.
I had a resident talk about, we can approach this later, but their son was pulled over multiple times by Moline PD in the 90s for skateboarding on the street. And she suggested that he would gladly pay thousands of dollars to help get this park built. And he's convinced there are hundreds of others with similar sentiment. Is there a model in which we can solicit?
Absolutely. We do have a Friends of Moline Parks and Recreation Foundation. We kicked that off. Seemed like it was, months ago, but it was just last month. So we do have that set up. I will say that this will not count towards an OSLED grant. So the OSLED grant is the biggest state grant out there that matches up to 600,000. Because it's not our land, they require a 20 to 25 year letter of like to show that we can, and the state only will do it for 5 years, permit for 5 years. So this will not work unless for some reason we can work something out with the state since it is a state grant. But I just did a virtual training a couple weeks ago and they said more like 25 years, they said. So just keep that.
So do you have it broken down how much each phase costs? For
Yes, kind of hard to see up there.
I'll go back and look. I just
Okay.
wanted to double check.
But it's in the light gray on the left-hand side.
Oh, I see, yes.
Skate park 1.7.
Yeah, I'll.
Okay. This slide just shows some pictures and renderings that were shared, just to kind of refresh everyone's mind. Yeah, okay, so this is the last one. So this is something that's come up in the last couple of weeks. The school district, we have tennis courts that we are putting a Band-Aid on for the next 3 to 5 years, filling in cracks and painting. They have terrible tennis courts as well, and they have talked about wanting to do a joint facility together. I told them that I would bring it to Bob and bring it to City Council. I think it definitely has merit. I don't think there's a need for 16 outdoor tennis courts. If they build 8, we build 8. We bid out tennis courts in 2023. It was 1.3 million. I think if done right, this could be a pretty nice project, and then that kind of frees up some space at Riverside to do some other things. My recommendation, if this was a project we want to move forward with, is to do 12 courts. That gives Moline High School the opportunity to play and do their match. And then that still leaves 4 tennis courts open. Where right now, Almond Tennis uses our Riverside tennis courts. And when they play and practice, there are no other courts in Moline really to play. Now this one, if this is something that would be built, those tennis courts would still stay in Riverside for several more years until the Band-Aid has wore off. That would give, I've not had this discussion with Almond yet, but I've had several discussions with them about last year when we talked about doing rubber on the courts, the squares. So if we gave them enough notice that they would be able to find a good location to put that. So I don't want to freak them out just yet. Those numbers are not hard numbers, but that would be new tennis courts, would be parking, and would be restroom facility at that location. That is currently the one on the left, I think is 12, and then the one on the right is 18. This would be built partially in TIF 10 and partially on the driver's ed lot. This is still a discussion that I don't think the school board has discussed yet. I don't think ours quite line up, but it's something that we could apply for an OSLED grant for in 2025 for part of our, if it's $1 million, our cost, we could apply for 600,000. They love to see when 2 entities are coming together to build a project, showing that there's buy-in from both sides. This would have to be vetted quite a bit more through public input. There are going to be people that do not like seeing not having tennis courts at Riverside Park because we've had tennis courts there forever. They're going to get upset that you want to build more pickleball courts there, or soccer courts, or basketball courts, where tennis was there first. But this was something that needed to be brought to your guys' attention and some serious thought. And then once the tennis courts life are gone, we can add more courts of pickleball, or on the right hand side says basketball and futsal courts. Those are like the mini pitches at Stevens. These ones are just a little bit bigger. Drive by Stevens Park pretty much any time right now. There's going to be kids playing there, or adults, basketball or soccer. So
Do you see tennis trending down significantly for pickleball?
So in
The
3
national-
years,
nationally.
so in 3 years, I'll tell you the numbers for Moline. In the last 3 years, pickleball, since they've been built in 2021 until now, has increased participation at Riverside Complex by 256%. Now, you have about 18,000 people playing pickleball each year. You have about 5,600 people playing tennis, but in the last 3 years, that number has increased in tennis. So that number has been going up since COVID. That's why I don't believe we need 16. There will be more discussion with Quad City Tennis Club and the school district, but I told them we couldn't come together just to build 8, and I don't think we could build 16. There might be courts left open. Now, there are chances for regional tournaments with the tennis, National Tennis Association, but that's not a guarantee. It's not, you build it, they're going to come every single year. There's a process that's challenging.
I understand it's private, but Quad City Tennis Club is also building outdoor courts.
Yep. I'm actually meeting and touring them next Friday.
Love the partnership. Definitely don't need 16 based on family tennis experience.
The guy goes back to the conversation about a year ago with bringing regional pickleball tournaments. If we do build some more there, we could have that location. Quad City Tennis has pickleball courts, and then you could also use those 12 tennis courts as well, and kind of have them. They would have to rotate a little bit. But that could.
Gotcha. Can you remind me how many tennis courts are there down at Riverside? 8. Okay.
Yep.
So basically, you'd be replaced there.
Well, no.
Well,
you'd retain the 8 for the school district and get 4 for the public.
I got it.
Because
Okay, so we would technically lose 4 courts.
The school district is never going to give up the time they need for sports teams, and so this partnership is. We run into that with shared pools and stuff too. When I was on school board, it was not really ever going to be an option to work with Two Rivers on that shared space because operationally it doesn't work.
Correct.
So if the numbers only support 4 courts for the public, technically, right? At the same time, in an afternoon, at the same time as the kids are there, the teams are there, that makes sense to me.
And the way this is set up right now would actually allow 4 courts pretty much all the time. And then when the high schools aren't playing, it allows 12 courts. So it's actually a better situation now.
Right.
Now, having 12 courts would give the high school some opportunity to host some bigger matches. So there might be some days where we don't, there's no tennis courts available, but we also have that right now as well. So it's not like we're not really losing. I think we're gaining a better opportunities with doing this partnership.
And we still do have the potential of adding courts under the bridge.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that could alleviate the next semester needs.
Yep.
I have one warning.
Yes.
About this, the maintenance costs.
Yep. So we would have to do an
But
agreement.
here's from experience, Bloomington maintains parks is responsible for Bloomington High School tennis courts. They are horrific. Dead spots everywhere, terrible shape. It's horrible to play there. That's because the city won't maintain the courts. And, budgets are voted on by changing personnel over time. And the high school students, right now, the high school can control the quality of the courts up there. But if it's ceded to the city doesn't necessarily, based on Bloomington's example, always maintain things. So that is a big partnership situation here, especially for maintenance, will be really important.
So they would maintain the courts, and we would have to come up with some type of what the cost would be.
Oh, sure.
But they made it pretty clear with the first couple of meetings that they want to oversee the complex because it's closest. They also want to. There's some other pictures you don't see about moving around some athletic fields or whatnot, which that's up to them. Is they want to also put maybe some maintenance shed over there to be able to keep a better eye. So it would be on them, but we would have to work it out for contract.
Just lived experience.
Sure.
Bloomington courts are awful.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Last but not least, I think.
Yes, there's two
two more items. David, can you put back on that? Yes. And I'm actually gonna hand these around just in case, I know you've got it on screen, but, this is for future discussion.
Oh, never mind. You wanted David.
Somebody took your chair.
I thought they wanted David Driver to come back.
Oh, you're never gonna get it.
And since you've got it in front of you, we'll, David, will.
Oh, it's so small.
It's real close to the bottom.
Wait, so pass it back down.
We can have it first. Okay, so one more there. Oops, there you go. Okay, that's, you can't even see it. So I'm glad I made copies. What we did here is we updated this spreadsheet with what we know as of today. We're not gonna work through this much today, but I wanted to give it to you as information, so as we head into the budget this summer, you guys can have time to be thinking about all these projects that you just heard about. So I'm just gonna kind of walk you through some some of the things that have changed. First of all, as we go down the 2024 year, as you know, we adopted the franchise fee effective, it's actually February 1st. We adopted it on November the 7th, but we couldn't start collecting until February 1st. We've got a beginning fund balance of $832,000 in fund. We've got property taxes that we levied that is going in to help offset pay for projects. And last year we talked about, you can see there's 200,000 incremental up. And that's been about the average of increases in assessed values for additional taxes. We had talked about considering applying that towards this fund. In addition, as we begin to collect cannabis tax now, effective July 1, we'll have ample funds hopefully to put towards these types of projects in excess of 200,000. There's the franchise fee. And in my last monthly report, I did show that those fees are coming in as planned, the franchise fees. So we're going to continue to monitor those for you, as well as the amusement tax. Then we've got some grant money from the police and the solar farm on that DECO grant that we just received, the $450,000 for the solar farm. That's on the revenue side. In yellow, that's where you'll see where Bob and I placed that transfer in from the general fund, that $2 million from the excess. And I'm going to get to, it matches up with the highlights of yellow down below. Then other revenue, we're finalizing some city property sales of some lots. And we've got interest income coming into that fund. And that's pretty much it for 24. As you see going forward, we may be doing bonding for the solar farms. That's all to be determined. There may be revenue that's coming in from energy sales to Mid-American. A lot of numbers for placeholders. So we've just identified those. So then on the expenditure side is the CIP. And as we worked through that PCI consultant recommendation last year, albeit we need $7 million estimated, we were hoping achievable within a 10-year period was to get to that $2 to $3 million mark. And we do indeed continue to hit that $3 million mark within 10 years. So there's $20 million of additional projects that this fund is paying for CIP. Then we've got the police, the expenditure for the grant that was up above. And then this next one, I've just kind of realigned the way that we put it. This is currently unallocated funds for special city improvements. That's the way I labeled this. And what that means is this is available funds, the total over to the right-hand side, $12,800,000. So that darker blue line can be pulled down based on council's priorities for any of these MKSK projects we heard about tonight, any of the parks projects with the tennis and the Green Valley, mix and match. Those are the funds that we have. They have not been earmarked for a particular project. We need council to pull those funds down. but it's realistic that we will be receiving those dollars. Going back to 24, then in the yellow highlights regarding the $2 million of revenue from the general fund, we will pay the balance due for MKSK as of to date, as we know it. It pays for $536,000 of 2 parcels for the I-74 property, or two resolutions, the way I should say it.
2 groupings. of
2
property.
groupings. Thank you. That's the proper way. And then down below, you'll see the Central Fire Station land purchase potential, $1.2 million. So we've got funding buttoned up for those projects that I know are council priorities. In addition, moving down, that's the residential, that's the J.C. Penney money. We've got that all funded through this fund as well. And then we've got that solar farm grant. And in total, over the 10-year period, if you look clear over to the corner, lower right-hand side, $80.8 million in projects that are funded between the property taxes, franchise fee, amusement tax. So a lot of wonderful things potentially happening. So as we work this summer in some special workshops, we will pull those unallocated amounts down to whatever the council's priorities are.
For 2028, E&I and the fire station, can you remind me what the assumption is for interest rates on that loan and what we're seeing the market shift towards in terms of, because things are high now.
Yeah.
But 2028 is 4 years out.
I forgot to run it. I'll have it the next time we get together. I forgot to bring it. We ran it, and the interest rates, albeit they've gone up slightly, the P&I on that road, you see the 2 million, is still reasonable. Yeah, we had our financial advisors update that. And again, that is based on $28 million total, 2 million that's in the bank, and then 26 million of bonding. And then we've got the land paid for if we proceed. But I'll have good numbers for you. Thank you. So that's kind of work in progress, this one. And then last but not least, we're just gonna real quick on the ARPA. Again, we'll come back with this, but I think as you recall, the word is must have a final allocation of committed projects by December of 24. This is a list that we've got projects identified to commit to. Okay, so by the 12/30, December 30th, we've got to get that done this year. Then by December 31st of 26, we have to have spent that money or we have to give it back. So we're going to commit it here by the end of the year, and then we've got 2 final years to run it through. And I just wanted to hit very quickly, highlighted in yellow, virtually everything is the same. We're following the plan, but we've tweaked it ever so slightly because of that Arsenal grant potential that we have. Because we were funding a match out of ARPA. Now that goes away, so we're sliding some other projects in. And the ones that Bob and I had talked about was sliding in the potentially as a placeholder right now, the Riverside Pool security cameras for up to $200,000. And that would be in 2025. So we could potentially get that one funded. Potentially the purchase of the downtown property for a one-stop
shop project.
Yeah, 1.9 million, and that includes the purchase price plus the renovations. And then lastly is the 30th Avenue, 14th to 16th Street that David talked about. We're taking away the Arsenal, plugging in 30th Avenue. And then if we turn the page, you'll see we've tweaked the water projects to kind of align with what Tony had been asking for. So those are the only changes. Oh, I did highlight, and I didn't mean to highlight Boost. I meant to highlight the land bank, the 161. Sometime this summer, on visiting with Bob, we'd like to bring that back and have an update for council, just evaluating that whole program, where the status is on But again, ARPA, we're on board. And just so you know, we do have to recalculate the split between unrestricted and restricted based on our audit for July 31st. So this split where we've got it in two different buckets is gonna change ever so slightly. We will update you with that change in numbers. I think we're gonna be fine, and some of these projects are a little bit flexible. So we've just gotta make sure our buckets are right for the compliance standpoint. Yep.
Questions? All right, Ms. Kostopoulos, can you tell me whether we can move through miscellaneous and public comment and adjourn, and then we put our stickers up before we leave, or does the sticker putting up opinion giving have to happen while we're in session?
It does, Jane, session.
All right, may I, city council, go through miscellaneous business, then we do the sticker putting up? Do I need a motion to change the agenda? Do that.
Or is this part of miscellaneous?
Could be part of.
Just do the motion. If we're here, you'd have to suspend the rules. So.
Oh, jeez.
I need a motion to suspend the rules to do this,
Motion to suspend the rules in order to put up stickers.
second. So we're gonna put them all
After miscellaneous.
Alright, so let's convene in Castro. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we'll do it that way. So miscellaneous business. I mentioned already, the updates from PMT. Also in that meeting, we got great updates from Kirk, who I think has just left about Moline Center. Lots of stuff related to sidewalks and dining, evaluating parklets, merchant meetings. It's just, he's really doing a lot of good stuff there. MCDC also gave an update. Their Handy at Home series has been really, really popular. They're fully booked for the last one, the 6th and final offering. If you're not familiar with that, please check it out on their Facebook page for sure. It really helps our residents who don't have experience with maintaining homes, especially old ones. Tree planting went really well. Had a little chat about follow through on that, related to really enforcing and embracing our urban tree canopy forestry plan and how we can work with our neighborhoods to do that. So lots of good updates coming. That's all I have.
Nothing.
Yes,
Nothing. Nothing.
nothing. Staff.
Well, I would like to thank you for the evening and forward to the exercise in front of you. To identify what is blue and what's red. Use your dots. And we're going to use that vision plan on the back, I believe, is the one that we should use. Or should we use this part and any of these three, really?
Yeah, any of them really, but the Riverfront District and development.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
We will take time to do that. Once your dots are up, please come back because then I will do public comment and adjournment. Thank you. In the back.
You can tell. Thank you for coming, Carol. So good to see you back here. You're all free to go, guys. Be safe.
Red is a no, right?
Red is no.
Red is no. You're also blowing it up. Picture. That's what I'm saying. I'm not showing it. I just want one red dot. Elias.
Location, we don't want it at all. We're gonna have a clarification.
Yeah. Yeah.
So is the red, no, we
Red
don't
is
want
you
it,
don't want it.
we don't want it at all, or we don't want it where it's at?
It's gonna be either one. You think something should not be there because it's too much massing, too dense for the red dot? Well, I mean, if there's 16, there's nothing to go with. Well, just use what you want. You don't have to use 12 dots. You don't have to use 12 dots, guys. guy is only, three things you wanna make red, right? 6 things you want blue, great. Timeline right now is, he's working on this, that's, oh my God, it's coming up on a year now. We were supposed to be done in August. That is the plan, to try and shoot done in August, the rest of the September.
Yeah.
This is huge, I mean, this is not even just a Europe, this is really. Yeah. Some cities are this big. In Iowa, in Illinois. Oh, no, this is the talk. This is like, this is like 60. Maybe. Yes, so this is how it's done. Well, I go read twice.
Hey guys, I'm gonna
I said, can't hear this.
I know it's set up.
Can I rock both and take the whole thing down? I don't care if they're
It's a marriage, basically.
But I think we gotta get up there something somehow. Oh, I think.
It is. The part that we're coming back right now, I'm hoping. We start to look at, we start to talk about, when we start to talk about the East End, there's your bend. This triangle here, I've got people I'm talking to turn this into residential. That can support this.
Well, where you live,
Even though it's in Moline, it does support the bend and what's going on in the bend and everything along 12th Avenue. Which, there's a lot of small little commercial stores where they're gonna stay dark. Because there's no keep. So this this activity is gonna be a prime place to live. Yeah, right there, literally at the bend. You're on the bend. I mean, it's like the bend campus. That's what it is. And there were plans to develop this at one time. There's over 90 units at one time.
Farther up, we get into like Riverdale, up that way. There's some of those neighborhoods.
Yes.
I just like to go.
And like. What happens is these people that support all activities along the water's edge. So like our marina is up in here, and that boat's already, that actually keeps that healthy because people with boats will live there. Will walk out the right, that's right. Or scooter, baby. Get yourself one of those Piaggios. That's what I want to. Appreciate your time. Thank you.
And. Or what? Oh. Well, I don't
I just went and looked at 6 o'clock.
But if we do have it, I don't like the sign. So I guess I could be clear.
All right. Monday was fine.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, I don't have a strong opinion. Whether we take it that long, whether we
I
take
run
it.
around.
And that put it right on our board because when I spoke to hear about shrinking it and getting used to seeing you.
Yeah, I think that's right.
All right. I will keep that here.
I'm giving you.
All right.
I can send.
5 and then dinner. 5 and then early dinner.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right. All right.
Tower. I've got one of each on there.
Yeah.
But
if we keep it.
Called the tower.
Yeah, but.
All
There, I
right,
voted
thank
for it.
you, city council, can we have everyone here? Is there public comment? There a moment? No. No executive session, so I need a vote. Oh, wait, Bob has miscellaneous comment.
Right now that you've seen the answers, because I know you're gonna digest all this. I'm gonna probably let you just have some answers with you for your team.
We'll take photos.
So do you understand, if we look at what they've done, understand what this means? See the red, see the blue, you can clearly see. But, maybe some confusion around up in this area here, I'm not quite sure, is it blowing up the tower? Just keeping the tower, I'm not sure what it means.
Just the stairs.
It's blowing up the stairs.
Oh, the
Secondary
staircase.
tower.
You guys don't like the Saturn missile concept, with the stairs have to stop.
We acknowledge that stairs are necessary, it's just how they're.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
all right,
Great. Thank
do you
you.
have any question, other questions?
I think if we'll have, future platforms to discuss these, then I think it's good. I think there's some clarity on, like, there's definitely some items on here that are all red and we'll wanna discuss further about, what could replace them, so. Yeah, we can do that. We'll have subsequent.
All right, thank you, thank you all.
All right, I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Castro and Murphy, all in favor?
Alright.
Adjourned.
Whatever.
Yeah.